Georgia to the wind in Texas. Today we're at Texas World Speedway, about a 2-hour drive north of Houston, College Station, for the 4th run of the IMSA Endurance Championship. The weatherman giving us partly cloudy skies. Right now a temperature of 68, headed for about 85, but it's very windy, and we have high humidity, a threat of thunderstorms yet this afternoon. Hi everybody, I'm Gary Lee, Speed Vision, delighted to be here in the heart of Texas. We have two veteran drivers joining us on today's telecast. Standing alongside of me, the winner of the Supercar Championship in '94, also a veteran of this division, David Donahue. And David, only 51 drivers starting this event, down from some 71 because of the big crash at Road Atlanta, but still traffic on this track will be a problem.
That's right. Traffic is going to be a major deal here. The cars are grouped very tight together. The lap times are very close, and the top speeds are very high, so drafting is going to be the key thing here. The cars the teams with multiple cars are going to work together to try to keep the lap times down, and then when they get into the pit, that's where the teamwork is really going to show as well, because the Pontiacs are going to have to pit maybe twice for brake pads, and the Mazdas are going to have to stop at least every hour just for fuel.
We've got a couple of guys we're going to give a big workout to down in the pit lane. Our other veteran driver, in fact, a champion of this division and an instructor at Road Atlanta. We welcome Jeff Perner.
And thanks, Gary. It's a great day here at Texas World Speedway. I tell you, this racetrack is a track that is real quick, but also has some corners that demand a lot of concentration. You have to really be patient with the car and take your time, because it's too easy to drive into them too fast. Now, we were at Road Atlanta a couple weeks ago. We had a terrible rainstorm, really made for some difficult racing and conditions. Now, the big difference between the two tracks is that Road Atlanta has a lot of elevation changes and a lot of fast corners. Here, we have a mix of corners, real fast and real slow, and no elevation changes. Those are the two big differences. We have a great day as far as weather is concerned. I think we're going to see some great racing here at Texas World Speedway.
Jeff, you're absolutely right, and a gentleman who certainly hopes there's going to be some great racing today is with me right now. It's Sylvain Tremblay, the gentleman who 2 weeks ago at Road Atlanta, in your first full season of racing, Sylvain, you got a pole position, and then you went on with a sterling win with your co-driver Joe Vardy. You're back on pole here. What a great start to the season for you.
We're on a roll. It's just, things are coming together. I guess the team has finally gelled. A lot of things weren't together for us last year, finally coming together. And Joe's knowledge and expertise has really, put the icing on this team. It really has. Everybody's doing, all cylinders going per se, even though I drive a car with no cylinders in it. So it's really been happening for us. His expertise and help, especially in car setup and knowing what to do and having the confidence in what the team can do, has really made an unbelievable difference for us.
Very, very different track than Road Atlanta.
Very different track. I don't know if it's really the track for a little Mazda car. I really thought the Fords were going to get us, but we got them by 5,000ths. But it's a 6-hour race. It's a very, very long race. Fuel economy is going to play a major, major deal for us. And traffic, front-wheel drive cars and our cars just take totally different lines in one and some of the other corners. So it's going to be keeping your nose clean and being there in that sixth hour. That's what we're working for. That's the goal today, is to be there at the end. So we're not really interested in going out and burning the laps. We're just going to be there at the end. That's what we're shooting for.
And if he's there at the end, maybe his second straight win. Gary?
Thanks, guys. I hope you guys have your running shoes on, because we'll keep you busy over 6 hours of this IMSA Endurance Championship. The cars have pulled out of the pits for their first of 2 parade laps. We'll come back with the starting lineup. Welcome back to Texas World Speedway. Here now is your starting grid, row 1. Joe Vardy will start the Mazda after was qualified for the pole by Sylvain Tremblay yesterday, and outside Sean Hendricks in number 20. In the second row on the inside, Kit Teasdale, the young lady in number 1 Firebird Formula, and Miller outside in number 35. In row 3 on the inside, it's Stu Hayner in number 32, Bill Murray in number 3. The fourth row will have Knowles in number 5, another Firebird Formula, and Smith in 47 in the Mustang Cobra. The fifth row, Pfeiffer in number 37, Conway in number 2, both Firebird Formulas. In the sixth row, Hemmingson in number 00. Number 0 is Paul Hacker in row 7. On the inside is Borcheller in 54, Donaher in 69. We move now to row 8. Frame in 71, Doolin in 48. In the ninth row, on the inside, number 12 is Collins, 01 is Ham, a former champion of this division. In the 10th row, on the inside, car number 11, Quick. Outside 62 is Earl. As David, we take a look at the rest of the starting lineup, 51 cars, and the pole setters for the fast qualifiers for the various divisions. In the sports class, it's Chris Wilson was the fast qualifier. He's driving the Prelude. Now in the touring class, it was Gary Blackman. He's driving also a Prelude. And in the compact class, it was Engel. It was David Doherty actually qualified that car, another Nissan.
The sports class is going to be real interesting. The Honda VTEC seem to have every element it takes to run this course. They've got good aerodynamics. The VTEC motor is fantastic. It gets a lot of power down the straightaway. You'll even see them running with some of the Grand Sports cars down the straightaway. And then they got the handling. And top it all off, geez, to really get all the other competitors angry, they get really good fuel economy. Then in touring is going to be interesting as well. Again, another Honda, but they don't have the VTEC motor. The cars look identical. You get real confused over looking at the two cars. You'll notice the difference when you get over to the track, into the infield section of the track.
Track temperature is 80 degrees. Once again, it is 9 turns. The banking is 22 degrees, and we have a 1.9-mile road course. And there is a look at, well, there he is right there inside the cockpit. Take us for a ride.
Well, here's a real important part of the track, turn 1-2 complex. That's where you see a lot of passing, and that's where the car's high-speed handling really makes a difference. And then by turn 3 right here, most of the passing will be done. As you'll see as we turn into the what I call the autocross section, there's really no passing in here. It's one lane, and now all you do is concentrate on setting up on this carousel section, this big long right-hander, to get out on the oval as fast as you can. And here I'm following David Murray. We're trying to catch him here. You try to hold on to the draft as much as you can, and then you just kind of follow the guy. No matter where you go, you follow the guy. If he thinks he's going in the wrong place, just go there anyway, because you really need him to punch a hole in the air for you.
And this is here where you want the horsepower right here, because you're up on the 22-degree banking. You leg it out as fast as you can, so you don't want to get stuck behind a car from perhaps a slower division in the infield.
That's right, and at the highest speed right here on the front straight, we got a big headwind, so it's even more important to be in the draft.
And so the teams that have team drivers certainly will be drafting. A lot of drafting important in this type of competition on this racetrack.
That's right. As you get close going into turn 1, boy, the cars have different handling characteristics going in there, so you can't be too close because the car will get on the brakes, and you never know what's going to happen when the competitor gets on the brakes.
Pace car out of the way. It is Joe Vardy, the veteran from Tampa, Florida. He's won 22 times in this division. In fact, he and the teammate won just 2 weeks ago at Road Atlanta, starting alongside Sean Hendricks. He also starts in the Ford Mustang, so a Mazda and a Mustang up in front. We have something like 10 Formula 4s. And look at this. The green flag not even out yet. Well, it is out now. It looked like we were going to have some passing before the green ever came out. 4 abreast down the front straightaway.
Boy, they're all the way down on the apron. Cars trying to get on the power real early there.
That was Cat Teasdale in the number 1 car up on the inside, making it 4 wide at the start.
They're even in the grass on the inside, using every bit of track and then some.
How many times have you heard the drivers meeting you cannot win on the first lap, and everybody tries to get in the first turn?
That's right. This racing really, no matter how long the race is, even a 12-hour race, it's a 12-hour sprint race, because really what it comes down to is who can last sprinting the car for that long without having a major catastrophe. And so the guys out there really haul as much as they can.
The first 21 qualifiers, the fastest 21 were all in the Grand Sport division. There are 24 in that division. There are 7 sports, 9 touring, and 11 compacts. Number 51, Chura, is in the pits. Number 13, Ken, is also in the pits. So on the very first lap, we have a couple of cars stopping already. Not a good sign this early in the 6-hour event.
No, but since they're in the pits real early, they'll have some time to make it up. Hopefully it's nothing too serious. Now you'll see the crowd or the field really get sorted out. You'll see drafting towards the end of the straightaway, the cars will just close up on each other.
Cat Teasdale in the first white car, number 1 out in front. A little higher line there for Sean Hendricks in the number 20 Mustang Cobra.
Yeah, the higher line helps him get into turn 1. There's a big banking change. You really hit the apron hard. So depending on the angle you take that, you can really get into 1 very fast.
And notice as we're talking about that banking difference, we have a change in the lead. The Mustang of Hendricks now takes the lead. But once again, strategy totally different in a 6-hour event than, say, if this were a 2-hour event.
Yes, they have to start conserving their brakes right away. As soon as they start getting hot and heavy, because the guys who start the race, they just want to get out front. They like being out front. You get clean air. You don't have to worry about some guy leaving at the front of you. So the tendency is to try to go for a lead all the time. It's hard to really pace yourself.
It is interesting that the strategy of who starts the race. The fast qualifier for this event was Tremblay, but he elected to put his team driver, Joe Vardy, in the car to start the race.
A lot of strategies played, not just for the single race, but for the championship as well, depending on who's in the lead for the championship, and really who's the hired gun in the car, who's got more experience. There's all kinds of different factors that vary into who starts a race.
Is it more difficult for you to start a race or come off the bench mid-race?
It doesn't really matter. If you're up front in the start, that's okay. That's pretty nice because you don't have to fight through traffic. And again, in the big start, one thing you have to worry about is somebody else losing it in front of you, because that's when the field is the tightest.
There's the number 5 car, David Murray. He's tucked in behind Teasdale as a slower car, number 47, out in front of them. Knowles is in the 5 car now. We're being told that Knowles started that car, number 5. So it's always a challenge to know who's actually in this car. And sometimes when they make the pit stop, David, they won't actually change the driver. They'll change tires, they'll top off the fuel, but sometimes the driver remains the same.
That's right, and sometimes the driver change, you can run a risk of having a problem with the seat, or the seat belt, or the guy doesn't get hooked in just right. There's a lot of human error in the driver change, or at least a lot of human error potential in the driver change.
Once again, we're into lap traffic. We talked off the top of the program, the traffic factor, even on a very large racetrack like this, and already in the early laps, they're lapping traffic.
Yeah, you can see the draft really working there. People trying to work together. And David Murray is one of the best drivers in the IMSA, and he's out there right now really making some headway.
We saw that change in the banking as I think it was Knowles in the 5 car came bouncing off that banking to the infield section.
Yeah, it can be very abrupt. The guys who go low and take a long angle into that banking change, the car stays more stable.
We saw David Murray there in the number 3 car going around Teasdale. And Greg, let's go back pit side to you.
Gary, one of the compact class cars, number 13, the Oldsmobile, early into the pits. One of the things we talk about a lot with the series is its street stock. I mean, that used to be what it was called. Give you an idea how critical the stock components are. The reason they're in the pits, the car is running fine mechanically. The speedometer is not working. Now you think, well, big deal. This is a race car. The problem is the only way these teams have tracked fuel economy and what their usage is by having the speedometer working, so they can say we're running so many miles and here's our fuel usage. Now you're going to see what's going to happen here. You can see they got the car up in the air, and if we could pan over to the left a little bit, the front tires are turning. And what they're trying to do is see if that speedometer cable is now attached correctly and working. If they don't have that working, they're guessing on fuel the whole race through, and if you run out here, you're in trouble.
And you can see the driver shaking his head, no, it is not working. And that's very frustrating. When you're strapped in the cockpit, there's nothing you can do but wait for the crew to get their work done.
Oh, and what's worse is you're just watching all these cars go by and you're losing time, laps, and you know the field's so tight and everyone's going to be sprinting that it's really tough to make it up.
It is indeed a lesson in self-discipline, a 6-hour endurance here on the 1.9-mile road course at Texas World Speedway. Number 20, Sean Hendricks continues to set the pace. He's driving along with Boris said. Sports Ford Mustang Cobra. He is up on the 22-degree banking as the race continues. We're coming back. We welcome you back to Texas World Speedway as we take a look at the overall standings right now. And you can see the time remaining in this 6-hour endurance championship event as Sean Hendricks continues to lead. The top 5 all driving in the Grand Sports class. Gary Smith, Don Knowles, David Murray, and Joe Vardy. And this obviously is no big surprise because those are the higher horsepower cars, and we expect those cars, David Donahue, to be out in front.
Yeah, I suspect Joe Vardy's probably taking his time trying to conserve mileage right now. Sean Hendricks, he just doesn't know any better. He just flies all the time. It's flat out. That's all he does. You can see how abrupt he landed down.
How much does that upset the chassis?
It can upset it a whole lot, enough that you really can't even get on the brakes. So you really have to let the car settle on all 4 tires again, just before you can get on the brakes very hard. Otherwise, the car's bouncing all around. You're trying to get on the brakes, tires start locking where ABS goes active, and you can't get the car turned into that turn 2 section. Our sports class leader is number 60, Chris Wilson. Chris was the fastest qualifier in this division. So once again, we have races within a large race here, 4 divisions in one overall competition. Chris Wilson, the fastest qualifier in sport, and he continues to lead
this event as it goes into the infield section. And you can see the car taking a different line, this particular car taking a different line off the banking into the infield.
It's a front-wheel drive car, and they're much less horsepower. They actually run down the apron on the front straight. And the reason why they do that is so they cover less distance. The cars that run up high can keep the car kind of freed up, so to speak. They can really get the horsepower down. Cars go faster in a straight line than they do in a corner, and that's what they're trying to do with the little touring cars and the compact cars. They try to cover as little ground as possible.
And there is your leader in touring class, number 41. And once again, when you have the closing speed as great as it can be, these drivers are watching both out in front as well as the mirrors.
Yeah, the poor compact guys, they got to look both ways. They kind of drive like Dale Earnhardt, always going down the straightaway looking in the mirrors, seeing who's coming, because you can't really start changing lanes and moving up to go into turn one at the highest speed and the highest speed differential if there's a bunch of cars coming down at you.
Joe Nonamaker in the 41 car, the touring car that's leading this division, won this division here last year. And of course, last year was the first time these guys raced here since 1971. So they were winning the track all over again last year. You can see how low these guys are on the banking. 22-degree banking, a very wide racetrack, but they're not using much of it.
That's right. See, they're running down on the apron there, trying to get a draft. As they start to cross the start-finish line, they'll have to move up a little bit so they can get an angle going into turn one.
Of course, drafting is so important here, just as we see in NASCAR. When NASCAR used to race here on the high banks, drafting is very important. Helps to save fuel as well.
That's right, and you can start working with each other. If you know a guy's real fast, it's not worth trying to get by him, because then he'll try to get by you again.
And John Norris in the number 65 car is leading the compact class. So obviously these guys know that they have certain ones that they have to compete against. There are 11 drivers in the compact class. David Doherty was the fast qualifier in a Nissan. There are 9 in the touring class. Gary Blackman was the fast qualifier in that division in a Honda. Chris Wilson was the fast qualifier in sports. And Greg, let's go down and talk to one of our former champions there observing from the pit lane.
Well, indeed, Doug Goad, a former champion, usually find him at the lead of the pack. And at the start of this race, your teammate, Cat Teasdale, went around from third, went into the lead. But then a couple laps later, it looked like some Mustangs were able to just pull out and blow by you pretty much at will.
Yeah, the Mustangs definitely got a horsepower advantage over us. They have all season. And when you get on a big track like this here at Texas, it really starts to show up.
Is it very important, obviously, to have that horsepower to launch up onto the NASCAR or oval section of the track? Do you have any advantage going down into the first turn?
Well, we seem to have a car that handles a lot better than the Mustangs do, and I think over the course of the 6 hours that'll start to prove itself out. We've got to run a pace that is aggressive from the standpoint of staying with the leaders, but keep the car together without burning it up. Hopefully keeping enough pressure on the Mustang so that he does burn up. They haven't shown the level of reliability we have, so right now I think what we're looking at is a reliability test.
All right, Gary, there's the story from down here. Watch for breaks in the race as well.
Well, when you look at the favorites as far as the body style, the car, there are 10 Firebirds in this Grand Sport division, and there are 6 Mustang Cobras. But right now, the Mustang is setting the pace.
Reliability is the big key with the Mustangs. They've been having trouble with their transmissions of all things. They put out a lot of power. So the power ends up causing a weakness in the transmission. But here they don't do a lot of shifting because they're up on the high banks for so long.
Another driver watching his teammate lead the race right now is Boris Said, and he is standing by with Jeff Perner in the pit lane.
Yes, I'm here with Boris Said, teammate Sean Hendricks. Mustang's looking great out there. How hard do you think you guys can run today in this 6-hour event?
Right now, I mean, Sean's running mid-11s, low 12s, and that's kind of our planned race pace. So we're going to run that pace and see where the chips fall. Hopefully it'll be in the winner's circle.
Well, maybe we'll see that Mustang in winner's circle today.
But it is not difficult to set a race pace and perhaps someone else wants to go out and run faster. I would think it's very difficult to have that self-discipline, say this is my pace, I don't care if I'm back in 5th or 6th, this is the pace that I want to drive.
Well, the difficult thing is that you're not pushing it so hard, you're afraid you're going to make a mistake because you're not on the absolute limit. You know, you go into a corner 10 miles an hour slower, but you still got to brake pretty hard because it's not 150, it's 140, so you have a tendency to hold your braking too late, and then you realize it is way too late, and you end up making a big mistake.
Is it also easy to lose a certain degree of rhythm if you're not driving, you know, at 10/10?
That's exactly the point. Yeah, you really, when you're rushing hard, you're trying and stressing every part of the car, and when you're just setting a pace, you're not using the whole car, and sometimes you can find yourself in a real mess.
And we're watching Sean Hendricks in his Mustang taking the high groove around some slower cars to put them a lap down as the laps continue to count down here at Texas World Speedway. Well, we have a problem on the racetrack, but Paul Frame, car number 71, a teammate to the Vardy Tremblay entry, has been there on the track for a couple of laps, stalled. So finally a wrecker is there to take that car. Really, it's not in any danger. It's well off the racing groove.
Yeah, but the corner workers are a little hesitant, I think, to go right out there. The cars are whizzing by there probably close to 100 miles an hour by the time they get to that point on the track. And you can see them whizzing by in the top of the frame. They're not really giving a whole lot of room to those guys.
A problem with the number 14 car. Greg, you're standing by in the pit lane.
Randy Pope's the driver. He was in the pits for quite a while, has now gone back out, but one of his teammates is with me, Peter Schwartzon. And Peter, problem for the Passon Motorsports Honda. What's happened?
Well, it's a hard luck story, but it's a long race. It's 6 hours, so they may have solved the problem. Yesterday, a motor tightened up on us, and they didn't have a spare. They had to buy one down in, where did they buy one?
Somewhere in Houston.
Houston. They bought a junkyard motor, put it in last night, did a yeoman's job, and the car's overheating a little bit at this point in time, but I think they solved the problem. So lucky for us that it's a 6-hour race, Greg. We'll keep our fingers crossed.
All right. Unfortunately, we get word that number 14, Randy, is coming right back in, so maybe the problem has to be addressed some more.
It doesn't sound good. We'll just have to wait and see what's happening. It does not look good.
All right, Peter, well, we hope all the best as the race unfolds. He's got 6 hours. It's a hot day again. Apparently more problems down with Jeff, more overheating. Jeff?
Is in the pits. The sports class Davis racing car with Kyle Correa. It looks like it's overheating. They've been in twice now. Maybe the day is going to start taking its toll already on some of these cars. Doesn't seem that hot out, but maybe hot enough to cause a problem. Back upstairs to you, Gary.
The 14 car was second overall in Atlanta, and just inconceivable that you could take a junkyard engine, put it in a race car, and go out and start the event.
That's about as never say die as you get, isn't it? These guys want to race or what? Taking a totally unknown motor out of a junkyard, geez, that's pretty much committed to me. Straight jacket committed almost.
Well, of course, they come to Texas World Speedway. They want to race. They do whatever they have to race as we look once again at your leader. And early on, we heard your pole winner, Sylvain Tremblay, say, I thought I would lose the pole to the Mustang. The Mustang has more horsepower. Right now, the Mustang is showing the muscle out in front. But again, not always in this length of race is the horsepower win.
That's right. The number 20 car has always shown its strength, but what they've really been working on and having trouble with is the reliability. The cars are new to the series, the Cobra R's are, and the Steeda car in particular has always shown a lot of strength early on in all the practice sessions. They've been running very fast.
Sean Hendricks on board right now, as we heard from Boris said, his teammate who will take over at some point. We're not sure if he'll take over in the first stop because we're not sure how many stops he'll actually be making, but high on the banking, up on 22-degree banking here at Texas World Speedway. It is a 9-turn, 1.9-mile road course. The top 10, Hendricks, Sean, Smith, Vardy, Borchetter, and Hacker. And coming up the middle of June, Speed Vision takes you to the world-renowned 24 Hours of Le Mans. In fact, on June 15th, we'll have live coverage of the start, periodic updates. Of course, Mario Andretti in the Garage Porsche. Can Wayne Taylor make it 3 in a row after winning Daytona and Sebring? Also 5 Dodge Vipers and an assortment of Porsches. It is the 24 Hours of Le Mans. We'll have you there live on Speed Vision starting June the 15th. Periodic reports throughout the 24-hour period after showing you the start live at 8:30 a.m. Eastern Time on June the 15th right here on Speed Vision. As we're showing you right now the top 5 as we continue on with over 5 hours and 13 minutes still remaining in this 6-hour endurance race. Sean Hendricks continues to lead Joe Vardy and Gary Smith. 2 altercations while we were away. In the 07 car, Ed Wheeler had a bit of an off-track excursion right here, a bit of a problem. Over there in the S's, low-slung cars aren't built for that type of challenge.
Looks like he might have had a little bit of help going into that.
And the 96 car of Mike Courtney also takes an off-track excursion and again out through the grass.
Well, you can see there he's got a problem with the left front suspension. You can see the wheel kind of falling in and out of the
So he
fender
takes
well.
a drive through the pit lane. And let's go to Mike Courtney's pit with Jeff Perner.
Yes, we're down here at Mike Courtney's pit, and the Mazda Miata, he has just come in with a very interesting problem here. As you can see, the brake rotor has completely exploded. There's only one piece actually left remaining, and actually what happened, it ended up deflating the tire. It ended up with a blowout here because it ended up breaking the wheel right straight through.
Well, that can certainly do the damage, and depending on how heavy the traffic is around when that happens.
Sure, he really lucked out because he was able to scoot off to the outside of the turn. There weren't too many people around. But boy, that's a big handful to do. Luckily, it also happened in a real slow section of the course.
Well, the driver who is in second position on the lead lap is car number 70. Greg, your second place car is in.
Number 70, Varde, hits the mark very nicely. He's getting out. They are going to apparently take a look in the car. They have been having a radio problem. Apparently, Joe can hear them, they believe, but they cannot hear Joe at all. So they're going in the car. While they're in, of course, the Mazdas in this guise in Grand Sports can run maybe an hour on fuel. It's been a while, so they're certainly going to top it off. They've made an adjustment. Actually, Sylvain Tremblay, the owner of the team, the Speed Source Mazda team, has simply replaced the radio. They're going to try it again, but while they're in, they're going to top off fuel. Tires look fine, no problem. Sylvain making sure of all the connections, working his way around the car. And again, they continue to top off the tanks. Then they'll drop Joe down. He will continue on. One would suspect that he will run the first 2 or 3 hours, and then Sylvain will get behind the wheel. They have to run an hour to get points, and then the car has to finish 70 laps of the class winner. So that's really what they have to achieve. They'd, of course, like to do that with a win. They're a little bit behind the 8 ball in terms of the fuel consumption, and you can see they are taking every opportunity to get as much fuel in that car as possible. It's done, it's down, he's away, and Gary, back to you.
Yeah, the veteran from Tampa, Florida, two-time champion in endurance racing in this division. In fact, he has 22 wins, and this is the team that won just 2 weeks ago over at Road Atlanta. So an early pit stop, about 20 minutes earlier than we might expect, and they'll see if they can't get that radio fixed. And we had another altercation on the track as we were watching that pit stop by Joe Vardy. And of course, Joe Vardy epitomizes this type of racing. He's been around for almost ever, successful businessman. Another altercation out here on the course, 3 cars involved, but you can see a very wide runoff area, lots of grass out there in the infield. If you get in trouble, downshift, pick up another gear and go on.
That's right. You really got to keep moving in the infield as well, because as last year when we were here, it was really dry, and if you came to a stop, there was a big danger of the car catching on fire because the exhaust would catch the brown grass on fire. Now it's the exact opposite. It's really muddy and wet out there. You got to keep moving just so you don't get stuck.
You may recall this race went green, flag to flag last year, an entire 6-hour green race. Let's see if we can match that this afternoon.
It's also interesting to note when Vardy was in the pits, when they did the fuel stop, you see the guy jacking up the one side of the car as high as the jack would go. It seems a little strange, but what they're trying to do is make sure they get all the air out of the gas tank and as much gasoline in there as they can get. Of course, the fuel mileage being the weak point of the Mazda.
And of course, that's gravity powered too, so it's a longer pit stop. They can't pressurize the fuel line.
Yes, usually the fueling the car is the limiting factor. You see in NASCAR and IndyCar, they have big, huge fuel lines, and here we have real small fuel restrictors. We use in the street style or the endurance championship here, we use a real standard type of fuel filler like you find at a gas pump, and that way it keeps teams from trying to gain advantage by just doing the fuel.
Going back now in another class to show you the winner of the first couple of races of the year, and there is Eric Van Cleef, who is also leading in the point standings in the sports division. He's won twice already this year, and he has about a 17-point advantage over Chris Wilson in the point standings. Greg, let's go back to you in the pit lane.
A little bit of an update on the number 70 car. Just recently had the pit stop with Varde. They swapped the radio out. it didn't work. They still cannot hear Joe. They don't think Joe can hear them, and they think it's a problem in the wiring harness of the car. Now, they're a little worried. If you recall earlier on, number 71 stopped on course, is now retired. Just the car completely died on him. They think it may have been a major electrical failure, and if there's a problem with the 70 car in the electricals in terms of the wiring harness, if that can cross over, if you will, to the number 70 car, they're a little bit concerned about that. They're watching things very closely here in the Speed Source Mazda pit.
Of course, David, long before we had radios, we had communications with pit boards. I suppose if nothing else, they can go back to that, but we've become so acclimated to having the luxury of hitting the button on the steering wheel and talking to the crew. Without that, we're kind of lost.
That's right. It's kind of a funny scenario. You know, I've never used a pit board. I've only used a radio, and in fact, I've pretty much only raced with a radio, so whenever I even open my mouth in the car, I key on, whether it's something the crew should hear or not, or the public for that matter, who's listening in on a frequency. But here it poses a new problem because the only place they can really do a pit board is on the front straight, and that's where the cars are going the fastest. And a lot of times the crew guys don't realize how far ahead we have to look as drivers to make the car handle properly, and they end up putting a pit board out when the car is right in front of them, and the driver can never just look out to the side of the car, of course, because he's paying attention to all the traffic around him.
We have been watching Eric Van Cleve, who won in the sports class at Sebring and Daytona, back now over the overall leader as Sean Hendricks, his team driver Boris said, standing by watching from the pit lane. So we'll take this break, come back with more action from Texas World Speedway. The 6-hour IMSA Endurance Championship from College Station, Texas at Texas World Speedway. And now with some 54 laps complete, Sean Hendrick right there, the number 20 white Mustang Cobra, continues to lead. And David, here the car is actually eligible to compete in this division.
That's right. The Porsche 968 was which basically what I drove here is the 944, the earlier version of the 968. Then the Mazda RX-7 Turbo, which we've seen for quite a while in their fuel economy. BMW M3, which is really struggling here as far as top speed. They got great brakes, great handling, but they just can't hold up to the V8 power of the Pontiacs and the Mustangs.
Here's the top 5 right now in this division. There are actually 4 divisions racing overall. These are the top 5. Paul Hacker, starting 12th, is now up to the 4th position in the number 0 car, and Hemmingsen rounding out the top 5 in 00. Now let's take a look at the point standings for the Grand Sport. Once again, John Heinrichsey with 71 points. Now, John, interestingly enough, is a Chevrolet engineer, the manager of validation and testing for the Corvette. He won here last year. He's a former champion in this division, the 89 champion, in fact. Vardy, who won last weekend, now in 2nd position in the point standings. Taking a look now at the sports car class, and here are the cars eligible for competition in this class.
And once again, as I said, the Honda Prelude VTEC, it seems to have it all as far as aerodynamics, power, economy, and here it is right on the bumper of a Toyota Supra. The Toyota is new to this series this year as far as running this strong, so it'll be real interesting to see how they do. The Nissan 300ZX, no one really knows what it's going to be able to do.
Top 5 in points. Anticipated performance, basically, is how they determine what class a car goes into, how they're going to work over the course of 3 or 6 hours. The top 5, Van Cleef, a winner twice already this season. He leads the point standings. Once again, he does have that point margin over Chris Wilson. Chris was the fast qualifier for this event this weekend. There's a look at the top 5 in your sports class. Also racing in this afternoon, the touring class and the compact class, as we look at the leader, car number 85, car 41 in the touring class. We have some 9 cars in this particular division this afternoon, and really only about 5 or 6 cars eligible for this class.
That's right. The touring cars, that used to be a really big class. I also drove a Saturn in this class. The Prelude SI is different from the VTEC Preludes. The Mazda MX-6 here is leading the class right now. The Oldsmobile Chivas, which you don't see very many of, and the Audi A4s, I don't think there are any out here this weekend.
Taking a look now at the top 5, Potter continues to lead in car number 85, the top 5 in touring. And I think we can talk to you about the point standings right now in the touring division. In fact, John Green continues to lead, but only by a point over Terry Earwood. In fact, Terry has won 26 times in this competition.
Yeah, Terry is very renowned for his front-wheel drive experience, I tell you. he seems to be able to get in anything and make it run up front.
Gary Blackman was the fast qualifier for this event as the compact car now. And here are those eligible for this class.
This is a new class. The Dodge Neon is obviously, when we first started out, was a real popular car. The Saturn SC, there aren't any here this weekend, but this Nissan seems to be running very strong.
Tonelli rides second right now on the racetrack, but he is actually second, actually tied for points. He and his teammate Jason Engel with 69 points each. And you can see the rest of the top five there. Doherty was the fast qualifier for this event this afternoon, so that's how it shakes out. The four classes that we have running, most popular class in pure numbers would be the Grand Sport. 24 cars in that particular class of the 51 starters here this afternoon. And there is Rob Walton in car number 5. Walton of the Walmart family. Sam Walton's one of Sam's sons. He's out here competing in the Formula number 5.
Sure, and you just saw him do a really rare thing in that what I call, like I said before, what I call the autocross section. He actually performed a pass. He got by that slower car, and it's really hard to do back there. So he's got a car working very well.
David Donahue alongside here in the broadcast booth. And as we indicated earlier, the passing zone really is as you exit the road section in the infield, get up on the banking, and then as you enter the road section, because really between turn 3 on through turn 8, there's really no place to pass.
That's right. You come off the banking, you go on the infield here. We have the leader. The leader's in the pits. It's going to be really interesting to see. It looks like they're going to do a tire change. I spoke to the Mustang guys earlier this weekend, and they said that they got to change tires every time they pit, and they can only go on fuel for about an hour and 20 minutes. So it looks like they're even doing a driver change here.
Sean Hendricks had gotten the lead early, led through lap 58, so he'll climb out. We're going to change drivers, and Jeff Perner is standing by. Jeff?
Okay, Sean Hendricks has come in. Borisset is now in the car, fueling. Also checking everything out on the car. Looks real clean. So far, no contact. Looks like they're having a great race out there. Just got thumbs up by crew member. As mentioned before, it's a slow process fueling one of these cars, but actually gives the crew a chance to double check things, change tires if they need to, and also makes it possible for the drivers to get themselves properly situated.
It takes a long time to refuel one of these things as they change the right side tires. Now these are actually shaved street tires.
The Toyota tires are specifically prepared for this series. They're a DOT tire and everything, but they have a little bit less tread. That way it gives the driver a better feel, and it actually controls the heat, because a normal street tire never sees the type of abuse that these guys put them through out here. And you see them changing just the right side, and probably because that way, as you see, they're jacking it up again like the Mazda to get all the fuel in there. It's easier. Why not? You're allowed the guys over the wall. You can just change tires and get the grip. That's the side tires that really get worn out quickly here.
Second generation driver Borisset leaves the pit area. His dad in the first U.S. Grand Prix down at Sebring and ran the Daytona 500. You know something about being a second generation driver, do you not?
Just a little pressure there.
Yeah, I guess. As the race continues here at Texas World Speedway, and the temperature begins to climb, because at the start of the race, the track temperature about 80 degrees. The ambient air was 68 degrees. We anticipate ambient air about 85 during mid-afternoon. Track temperature could climb well over 100 degrees. That will make it very slick.
The sun's out now, and it really changes the condition of this course, especially like we keep mentioning the 1-2 combination area. That's where the cars are the most unstable, and that's where you see them get the most squirrely as well.
One guy that can tell us what the track is like is Don Knowles, because as an undersecretary of the Interior, his hobby is driving race cars. He's been out there, but right now they've made a driver's change, and Greg, you're down there with him.
Well, indeed, and you can take a look at the tire that came off the right rear of the car. Toyo makes an exceptional tire, but a heavy car, high speeds, and a warm track will do some damage. And Don Knowles, you got out of the car. First of all, you said you could feel that tire going down earlier on.
That's true, Greg, but you know, I think what you see is not necessarily what really is. In fact, this tire is perfect. We ran an hour and 10 minutes real hard. We were in the top 5 the whole time. Things are supposed to wear out on race cars right when you pit. This tire is a perfect example of that.
timing being everything. Somebody that would know about getting a little bit of mileage out of a car, 14 wins in 24-hour races. I think that makes you the all-time leading winner in 14 races with wins for 24 hours. This is sort of a sprint for you at 6 hours.
Oh yeah, you know, I don't think I'm going to work up a good sweat yet today. I've proven I can sit in a chair and sweat for a long time, but I don't think I'm going to start sweating quite yet.
All right, obviously doing a great job in the car. We look forward to you moving up on those Mustangs a little bit later in the race. Speaking of Mustangs, the early leader in this one is down with Jeff Berner.
Yes, we're here with the leader in the Grand Sports category, Sean Hendricks, having a great run in his Ford Mustang. Sean, good drive out there. I mean, how things looking? How's the track behaving out there as far as the temperature is concerned?
Car's going great. It's not even really hot in the car right now, thanks to this nice breeze we're having. Car's hooked up real well. This is a good track for the Mustang because of the long straightaways, and we're just out there cruising right now.
Yeah, they certainly are cruising. Mustang's real strong on the straights, and it looks like it's going to be a good race for them today.
So obviously a change for the lead because of the pit stop. The 47 car now of Smith. Gary Smith is the overall leader, although he's getting past there in that road course section, and he'll be due for a pit stop before too long as the 6-hour endurance race continues on from Texas World Speedway. And this happened while we were away. Your leader at the time, Stu Hayner, brings the Pontiac in for a pit stop, and he will climb out of the race car as John Heinrichsey will go in. Of course, Hayner was victorious here 1 year ago. They were leading at the time, and this pit stop came just as it had been planned.
That's right. You can see a very well orchestrated pit stop. Everyone is doing their own individual jobs.
But that gave the lead back to Joe Vardy. Now, Vardy, of course, made a pit stop very, very early. They're out of some pit sequence right now because of that, but he's back up in front in car number 7. He is the overall leader.
That's right. Just as I said earlier as well, this car has to stop early for fuel, but they even had to stop even earlier because they didn't have radio communication and they had to kind of get things sorted out so they knew how to communicate later on in the race.
Greg Creamer is standing by in the pit lane with the driver that had been leading, your winner here 1 year ago, Stu Hayner.
Indeed, Stu not only winning here last year, but the first 2 races of the season, you had yourself a pretty good start with a couple of wins. Problems at Atlanta, you suddenly find yourself 3rd place in points behind teammate Heinrichsey, who's now in the car. First of all, how's it going in this race?
Well, we're having a little trouble with, we've had some problems with the computer all weekend, and it retards the timing, so the thing just doesn't go down the straightaway quite as fast as what we'd like, and it shows, you know, we're getting passed by some of the cars that are going, but we think that we've got a good car and it's handling really well. I'm hardly using the brakes and using the tires up, so we think by the end of 6 hours we'll have a car that's fresher than theirs. As long as they don't keep going at the rate they're going, we'll be okay, I think. Yeah, we had some big troubles at Atlanta. We had a winning car there and then got caught in the rainstorm. But I think this weekend we're going to do well just because we do well in long races.
Well, Stu, we wish you all the best. Obviously, a lot of time yet to go. Gentlemen?
Thank you.
David, we have talked a lot about brakes. What can a driver do to really conserve the brakes over 6 hours?
Well, it's really a delicate balance because one would think you just get on the brakes not quite as hard. But in reality, sometimes that's even worse because you have to brake a lot longer. You build a lot of heat up. So you have to kind of balance it between getting on them hard and not staying on them too long. And that way they can help preserve them without putting too much heat into them. Because once the brakes get real hot, then the wear factor goes up very quickly.
Jeff, veteran driver, Jeff Berner, you have a thought on the brake situation.
Well, I think you're going to see the brakes becoming an issue. This racetrack, particularly down into turn 1, you're on the brakes for a long time and fairly hard, and then immediately after that going into the turn 3 area. You do get a fair amount of racetrack to let the brakes cool, which is good, and that does help to conserve them. But the drivers have to be thinking about it the whole time that they're in the car. Certainly their co-driver is not going to appreciate it if they get in and don't have any brakes, so they need to be aware of that the whole time they're in the car and just really taking it easy going into those braking zones.
There you notice on the screen there that Joe Vardy's flashing his lights on and off, and I know the way we used to run the Porsches and even in the BMWs we run now, we have a reserve tank, and when we go into the reserve tank, maybe he's getting a light on the dashboard, fuel is low, to get the team ready for the pit stop.
We've been watching the Zero car. That's the Hacker Express. Paul Hacker started this race in 12th position. This car now is up to 5th. Of course, the Hacker Express with Carl and brother Paul, and they have won so many times in IMSA competition over the years.
They're very seasoned veterans in this type of racing. They really know what they're doing. Of course, they fielded the factory Oldsmobile team years ago, just 2 or 3 years ago actually, for several seasons. Did very well, won a championship, and now they switched to the big cars Grand Sports class and gone with Ford. They've been struggling a bit with these cars. They've been learning a whole lot about them, and now you see it's really beginning to pay off.
You caught a glimpse in an earlier shot of the leader. There's the leader top of your screen. So right now the leader is actually a full lap in front of 5th place. Well, you know, Jeff Perner's a pretty good instructor as well as a pit guy and a driver.
Jason Priestley is best known for his role as Brandon Walsh on the hit television show Beverly Hills 90210. But he's also become an avid racer, competing in rallies all over the world. Now, though, he's decided to move off the forest trails and onto high-speed road course racing, IMSA style.
You know, I'm very comfortable, you know, in the car and very comfortable with the cars and everything. It's very different, of course, from the rally racing I was doing for the last 3 years, because you're not going sideways quite as much, but it feels good.
It was a pretty substantial change, so Jason enlisted our own Jeff Perner, a world-class racer and chief instructor at the Road Atlanta Driver Training Center, to ease the transition and shorten that learning curve. Now, you never really know what to expect with a new student, especially when dubbed a star. What did Jeff discover?
Until you meet somebody the first time, you don't really know what to expect, you know. You watch them on TV, and, you know, that the character that they're playing isn't who they really are. And he's a great guy, a lot of fun to be around, and, you know, really listens well and is absorbing as much as he possibly can. And I think he's going to be a real good race car driver.
I don't know about it ever being a career. I don't know if I'm, you know, if I'm a good enough driver or anything like that yet to make a judgment on that. But you know, it is something that I really love doing, and I would you know, like to pursue it as far as I can.
Well, with the help of Jeff's expert instruction, will Jason replace his actor's clothes with a full-time driver suit?
If I could get paid to do this, I mean, that would be the best thing ever.
Yeah, it was a great thing working with Jason. I really enjoyed it. He's a good guy, and he is going to be a good race car driver. He's dedicated and serious about it, and I had a lot of fun with him. Good time.
Of course, Jason not racing here this weekend because duty calls, and he's out making a movie in Nova Scotia, so he's not getting paid well to drive. He's getting paid well to act, and that is why he is acting this weekend and not racing. It looks like the leader may be headed for the pit lane. Yes, Joe Vardy in car number 70.
You see,
made an early pit stop, but now he's making what is going to be a routine pit stop, we think. And Greg, you're down there in position.
Absolutely, and also is Sylvain Tremblay, the driver that put this car in pole for the second straight race. He is going to replace Vardy due to the heat. Of course, they're going to try and change drivers fairly frequently to keep them fresh. Because of that first stop that only took, about 30 minutes into the race, Vardy elected to stay in, but Tremblay going to be getting on board this time. Vardy out, you can see the car up on the jacks, going for fuel. Remember, they kept this car up on the jacks a long, long time to make sure that they had that fuel absolutely topped off. In terms of economy, this is the car that gets the worst in this category. You can also see they're topping the oil up, so they are using oil just a little bit. That's a bit of a feature of the rotary engine. They go through it just a little bit more. Not really a problem. They're just being cautious, topping it off, checking the brakes. Again, we heard Jeff talk about brakes being a serious factor here. They're making sure, no need to do brakes right now. Fuel is up. They're topping the oil off. Car is down. And the hood is going to drop right now. Little problem getting the pins on. They actually completed the change of the fueling quicker than re-oiling the car, if you will. And he is out of the car. We're going to see if we can sneak over here real quick and grab Joe and just see how it went. See if we can grab him here. He's pulling the gloves off. Joe, how'd it go out there?
Pretty good. If everything's running fine, the car's running good. We're not getting the mileage we expected to get, but it's a pretty hot day, and we're sticking by our plan. We're doing fine.
You don't look to be having any problem with heat. You look comfortable.
I'm going to fall in a few minutes.
Okay, it's all an act, obviously. I mean, he's out of the car, he's going to relax. Back up top.
What you see is not necessarily what you get. Vardy, a pretty accomplished mechanic as well, working out of the Charlotte area on some Busch cars, and that puts the number 20 car back in the lead. So Boris Said now leads here at Texas World Speedway in the 6-hour endurance championship. The attrition rate certainly will play a role in the 6-hour endurance run here at Texas World Speedway. And while we were away, Bernal Cochran in car number 3. This is the car that actually won the championship last year with Andy Pilgrim. And he lost something, perhaps a head gasket or something in that power plant.
Yeah, you can see the definite big puff of smoke, and then he makes a pretty good decision here. He lets the Mustang by, and then he just pulls it off an escape road. But you can see smoke coming from the middle, which and out of the tailpipe, which is definitely not a good sign.
Well, there's a look at Cochran as he is explaining what perhaps happened. Let's go down to the pit area. David Murray, who is a co-driver, is standing by with Greg Creamer.
David, a little bit of smoke out of the back of the car. Co-driver pulled it off over in turn 3. Any idea what happened?
No, I really don't know right now. I just saw in turn 1, Bernie went in and smoke come out of the back of the car. I don't know if it's engine, transmission, rear, what it is. And he went around the back, and our trailer's over there, so he just parked it, pulled it off the course, and could get back to the trailer that way. He parked it back there, but I haven't talked to him. I don't know what it is.
It's a car that's had a pretty good history in this series, though.
Yeah, I think it was a championship last year, and the car's a great car. We were running, I think, 6th or 5th or 6th, and it was a solid car. We had no problems. The temperatures, everything looked fine. So I really don't know what. It was totally unexpected what happened. But there's a chance I might get in the 5 car with Don Knowles and those guys. So we'll try to keep our team hopes alive for Cochran Motorsports.
A little bit of a change of pace here. You've been doing this type of racing, and you've been racing at Daytona in the 24 hours for a long time. Looks like you might be getting a little break with some open wheel equipment here in the next few weeks.
Yeah, well, I started my career in Formula 4, did the first 4 years in that, and kind of all came full circle now, and IRL's trying to get some good folks in the field and get to fill it up. So in spite of that, they still called me and asked me to come do the rookie test, provided there are some backup cars available. So I won't know until after first round of qualifying if there are cars available, but if there are, then I'll get a chance to do that.
Great opportunity for you. Wish you all the best.
Very much. You know, that's the thing with IRL right now, that gives a great opportunity for guys like me to get involved, where karts race in Michigan, so there's a lot of spots that aren't filled. So it's a great opportunity to me, and I'm really thankful to Tony George and all those guys.
Hey, Gary, I would assume that David gets a chance like that, he is going to jump on it.
I would think most drivers probably would with a chance like that. Now, David is driving as a teammate to Rob Walton. Interestingly enough, he worked with Rob for some time before he realized that he was a billionaire in the connection with Walmart. So sometimes you need a program to know the players. So once again, your leader now, Boris Said, has completed some 88 laps as we look at the upcoming schedule. Of course, you can see all these events here on Speed Vision. Watkins Glen in June. In July is Sears Point, Sonoma, California, and Mossport Park on August the 26th. The race continues, though, today from Texas World Speedway.
Welcome back to Texas World Speedway. We're here with Bart Hayes. Just got out of the Duragloss Ford Mustang. And you got a great run at Road Atlanta. Good finish there. What happened today?
Well, we lost the rear end. Yeah, you're right. The Duragloss Ford Mustang was really running good today, and I'd even backed out of it, wasn't even breaking a sweat. It's a real disappointment for the team.
That's too bad, because you guys were looking good, I think as high as 5th place, and you were probably hoping for another good finish here in Texas.
Yeah, we were kind of laying back there. That was our strategy. We'd lost the draft there somewhat, and I was trying to make up a little bit of ground, but I'd lowered the revs and was shifting easier and braking easier and all the things you do to conserve a car. And then I shifted into 5th, going up in the banking, and I just lost all forward momentum.
Well, now taking a look overall now as they were standing after 2 hours into this 6-hour event. Boris Said continues to lead. John Kohler is now in the 2nd position. Hayes was running 3rd. Now, once again, that 0 Mustang is now on the sideline, and Tremblay then moved to 3rd position in number 70. As we take a look at the rest of the overall rundown, the first 14 positions are from the Grand Sport division, and leading in the sports division, Chris Wilson has been in the cockpit from the start of the race. Bill Pate is leading in touring. and Mike Mitchell is leading in the compacts. Strategy, first of all, attrition will be a problem. The physical condition of the driver will be a problem. But beyond that, strategy at this point in the race.
Well, definitely the ability of the driver to keep it going. We're getting reports up here since we're in a nice air-conditioned little booth, but it's apparently getting pretty hot down there, and some of the drivers are getting out of the cars and just pretty much falling to their knees. So the attrition of the driver and the ability for him to stay aware is definitely going to be a factor.
These drivers using the stick.
Some drivers have, like you see in NASCAR, they have a hose that goes into their helmets, and sometimes that hose goes through a chiller or it's a cooler with some fins in it, a bunch of ice packed in it. The air gets blown through, gets cold, and goes into their helmet. Those are really good because you get a lot of fresh air from the outside rather than the dirty air, which is inside the car very often. And that really helps to keep you aware.
Well, you're watching Boris Said as he continues to lead in the Mustang. Car number 20, the overall leader. Now, a little earlier in the compact division, your leader at the time was John Norris. Norris came in, and they made a driver change with Mike Mitchell going out. Now, they had a big enough lead that actually they never lost the lead.
No, they seem to really have it in hand. What happened, I was walking down right after qualifying, and I was talking to a bunch of guys down there. They really don't know what this car is capable of doing right now, the rest of the competition, that is. So really, this is the first time people are seeing what it's made of. And I tell you, it's really made of a lot right now. They can go a long way.
Well, they went 2 hours without making a stop. Let's go down and check in with John Norris.
Okay, we're in here at the pits with John Norris. Just got out of the Nissan 200SX, the leader in the compact class. John, that's a long run on a tank of gas. Looks like that might be to your advantage.
I think we're looking in pretty good shape. The Nissan 240 is running great, and I got the luck with the traffic. I got the draft for some quicker cars down the front straight, helped me keep the speed up, and also helped me save a little fuel. So we're trying to make a 2-hour run here so we can make it in 2 stops instead of 3 stops. We'll see how that goes. But everything's working great. It's a lot of fun. It's great fun.
That's good. Try to make it a 2-stop race here with the Nissan. That will work out to their advantage.
Tell you what, they must have an ace in the hole because they maintained the lead. The other guys were dropping off, making pit stops, changing drivers. They stayed out for 2 hours before they made the change. And as you heard, he's drafting with faster cars, which gets him down the front straight faster, but also conserves some fuel.
Yeah, right now you can see they're pretty much running alone. But that definitely, the 2-hour stop, or almost 2 hours to the first stop, is definitely an advantage. For them to run out there right now, they really have to conserve the car. They've got it in hand, and they have quite a lead as far as we can tell from here in the booth. So they're doing a great job there.
Running 25th overall, but right now they have a commanding lead in the compact class as the 6-hour endurance championship race continues here at Texas World. Today we come to you from College Station, Texas, and in the background you can barely see Kyle Field. That's the football stadium at Texas A&M University, just down the road from Texas World Speedway. And it has been a beautiful afternoon for the race fans. Hot and humid, partly cloudy skies, despite a forecast calling for a threat of thunderstorms this afternoon. Rob Walton will come sliding across the screen. The first of 2 off-track excursions for Rob Walton in the white number 5. Now this was earlier. He got the thing straightened out, got back on course, and about 2 laps later took another off-track excursion. And what could have happened, Dave?
Boy, you know, I've had this sort of thing happen. You end up breaking your rhythm, and you're trying to make up the time from the first spin, and you just end up overcooking it. Either that or the tires may be going away. Maybe they're trying to go a little bit too far on one set of tires. He's probably being real cautious now, trying to keep the car stable and drive real smoothly just to keep it from happening again, because it's awfully embarrassing as a driver.
Well, of course, David is a BMW driver, and also joining us now in the broadcast booth, another BMW driver. This is Kyle Chura out of Michigan. And Kyle, the number 51 BMW had some trouble very, very early on today.
Yeah, in the initial pace lap there, I was going around waiting to get the start there, and I noticed that our temperature gauge jumped way up. Part of my job as a driver to make sure we monitor the happenings of the car, and we do that through the various gauges on the dashboard. So in a 6-hour race, I came in before we took the green, and we bled our coolant system and went back out, and we're running real strong now.
Barry Waddell is in the car out of Evansville, Indiana. In fact, a driving instructor for the Barber School. And let's talk about track conditions. When the race began, the track temperature was 80 degrees. Obviously, as the sun bakes the Rob Walton now, we understand, back in the pit area after those 2 off-track excursions, and they're making a driver change to car number 5. But as the temperature of the track increases with the sunshine set from the track, obviously it's getting slippery.
Correct. You especially notice that it's coming out of turn 7, going out onto the bank out there. The car is really going to want to push hard. So you just really got to adjust your braking points and make sure you're running within yourself, especially coming around the bank here down the main straight. When you go into turn 1, you really can't rest on the main straight. So you really got to pay attention the whole time and adjust your driving abilities to the track.
Well, as we're talking, we see some pit stops, including a pit stop by your lead car, the number 20 Mustang. Boris said had been out there. Sean Hendricks had the driving chore early on and put that car in the lead before he turned it over to Boris said. So is this about a routine pit stop, David, or are we a little early?
It looks it to me. I mean, everybody's doing their jobs. No one seems to be getting a little restless or spending too much time. It looks like they're having a little bit of a problem on the route. No, I have to correct myself. They're just trying to get all the fuel in they can. But boy, pit lane was really crowded there for about 2 minutes.
The longest part of a pit stop is the refueling, and you can see the refueling on the right side. So stretch that hose across the back of the race car.
Yeah, that's something that's different at this track particularly, because most of the tracks we run mostly right turns, where this one's mostly left turns, and very usually that door to the gasoline filler is on the pit wall side rather than the far side. And of course, being pretty much stock cars, they're not allowed to just change the fueler like you do on a stock car.
Well, John Kohler back in the lead now in car number 47, as the lead car had been number 20 with Boris said. He climbs out, and Sean Hendricks will be back behind the wheel when that car leaves the pit area. So a round of pit stops now, shuffling the standings somewhat, as John Kohler will have the lead in that car right there, number 47. Kyle, we're talking about the slick track conditions. Let's talk about the heat conditions inside the cockpit. We're seeing some drivers really extending themselves as they come out of that race car.
That's true, and maybe the drivers that are extending themselves now are not getting back in the car, but like myself, I got one more stint to do at the end. So I'm up here in the air conditioning, taking in some fluid to make sure I can get back out there.
You act like you'd like to stay up here for a while.
This isn't so bad. You guys just need some hors d'oeuvres, and this would be great. But
that's right down the next suite.
But on some of the cars, you notice they have hoses hanging out the window on either side. That's to cool the driver off. But on our car, we have all 3 windows up, and we have a water bottle inside the car. So we're giving up a little, not hanging anything out the window for that straight line speed. But in addition, in those first couple laps, when we got the coolant system bled, I was running around with the heater on. So just to make sure the car was cooling properly.
How long, once you get back in the race car, will it take you to get up to a rhythm? You've been watching the race from both the pit area and now from up here in the press box. And how long is it going to take as we watch Knowles back in car number 5? How long will it take you to get back up to a rhythm?
About 2 or 3 laps. You just got to make sure you don't overextend yourself when you go out in the first couple laps to get a rhythm back. And just make sure you're driving smart and not in anybody's way. And get a feel for the car and the track conditions, because you haven't been in the car for a couple hours. So it all comes screaming back in a hurry.
Kyle, thanks for joining us as we run around to the pit area. Greg, you have a comment on the Pontiacs?
Well, indeed, you know, we've talked about these cars being showroom stock, not purebred race machinery, and therefore not full of trick, quick change components. However, when you get into a race of about this length, 6 hours or so, sometimes the rear differential in the car can start to go away. You can't just pop it open and change it. These are stock machines. It's far easier to replace the whole drivetrain, if you will. Drive shaft, the axles, and the differential all in one component. Now, they got it wired so that they could do the brake very quickly, rehook that up, and of course sway bars, everything. They figured they could do this. They practiced it in about 4 minutes, and they changed this entire back end of the car. That's pretty remarkable. Now, more information down on the other end of additional adjustments you could make from Jeff.
That's right. You know, you've heard of the Big Bertha golf clubs. Well, take a look at the Big Bertha sledgehammer. I mean, you wouldn't expect something like this to be a part of a pit crew member's routine here, but occasionally you have to get into something like this with these sheet metal bodies out there. It's very close running out there, very slippery racetrack, and once in a while fenders get caved in, and this is what they use to knock them back out.
I wonder, as a driving instructor, if you've ever used that on a student.
Knock a little sense into them every once in a while.
Well, as we watch once again, John Kohler is your leader. We just, as we told you, we documented the pit stop by then the race leader, car number 24, said, and Sean Hendricks took over. But right now, after that pit stop, John Kohler has the point in car number 47 as the race continues here at Texas World Speedway. Pit activity here at Texas World Speedway. That is the number 60 car that had been leading in its class. Chris Wilson, the fast qualifier, pulls in after 2.5 hours of driving, a long driving stint, and Greg Lobel takes it back out. So a good pit stop and really a lengthy drive for one driver.
Yes, I mean, you look at it, it's about 2.5 hours that he was in the car, and he probably did the first stop without changing. I find it hard to believe that they could actually go that long without stopping, so I assume that they stopped before. We might have missed it.
Interesting situation earlier in the race. We talked about the junkyard motor. Randy Popes has joined us now in the booth. And tell us how it was. Obviously, you lost the power plant yesterday. How did you find this engine?
Well, the Passon Motorsports team got on the cellular phone immediately after we had an engine problem, and right at the beginning of practice, called around Houston, and we found an engine in the junkyard out of a Honda Prelude SI that had been wrecked. So Matt, the crew guy, got in the crew cab dually and just ripped on down the road to Houston and got back with the motor. JJ, the crew chief, put it in the car. We drove it around a little bit on the road last night because these cars are almost street legal, and put some time on it this morning with an emergency hardship lap. And the motor was running great. We were going virtually as fast as we were because a stock engine prepared by Honda, that's not all you're allowed to do in this class. But we only made one lap. It overheated. Turns out the engine had some damage as a result of the accident from the junkyard. So we're going to have to go back, see if we can get a refund.
That's going to be a tough one to prove, I think, to the folks you got the motor from.
We'll tell them we only did one lap at Texas World Speedway.
Andy Pilgrim on the track now in number 1. So if you're in the market for a slightly used engine, we have it for you. 6th overall right now. Andy Pilgrim, he's the defending champion of this race, and right now he is tied for 4th in the point standings with Kit Teasdale. So 6th overall is Andy Pilgrim in car number 1, and obviously a long, long way to go to make up the ground that he has lost, because we're only into about 2 hours and 40 minutes of a 6-hour event.
They've got a couple laps to make up, and that's going to be real difficult. The 20 car is now on the same lap as the leader again, and Sean Hendricks is back in it. Like I said before, all he knows is just to go. That's all he knows.
The Mustangs have the speed, but thus far this year they haven't really shown the reliability, Gary, and this is a long, long race. These Pontiacs have been really proven last year, especially Andy's team, the wheel-to-wheel Pontiac racing team, and they might be able to pull it off if they get lucky, because the Mustangs are out front right now, and maybe they'll have their gremlins pop up that we've seen in the races earlier this year.
One of the team drivers for the leading sports car right now is with Greg Creamer.
Yeah, a gentleman who no doubt has gone door handle to door handle with Randy Popes a few times in this series is with us, Chris Wilson. Chris, first question for you. You went almost 2.5 hours in that car from green flag to your second stop. Sort of an Ironman performance here.
Yeah, well, I didn't get my workout in today, so I figured I'd stay out there an extra stint just to make sure that, getting some pounds off. But the DC Sports Honda VTEC is just running flawless. I was a little worried about the Toyota. He was able to run an hour and 45 minutes without fueling, and we've fueled twice now. But on the track, it seems like we've got him by a little bit, so hopefully we can keep this pace going, and if our fuel strategy works where we have to fuel more than him and run faster on the track, I guess we'll just have to go with that. But the guys gave me a great car. What else can I say other than perfect pit stops? First time I kind of caught him off guard, though. I came in because it cut up on the banking, so I said I'm coming in, and my co-driver wasn't ready. And so that's the real reason for me doing 2 stints, but things are going well.
Obviously pressing the fuel economy right to the limit to try and make this race in as few stops as possible. So far, so good for the number 60 Honda.
Greg Lobel now in the cockpit, and they have maintained the lead despite the pit stop as we take you back and show you the leader of the touring class. That is car number 31 going through the S's through the road course section here at Texas World Speedway.
Remember what I said at the opening of the show, that teamwork on and off the track, and that's where you really see the teamwork off the track coming up to to help the leader.
Randy Popes has joined us once again here in the broadcast booth. In this section of the racetrack, Randy, has to be frustrating for a driver because you really can't do much but follow the guy in front of you. And if you're in a car that's actually faster than the guy in front of you, you're tucked in behind him and you're stuck till you get to turn 8.
That's the truth, and for that reason, you want to really make an effort to keep a guy that you know is going to be slower than you behind you as you're entering that section, if you can. There's one place right at the end of the short, squiggling, straight squirt in the middle of that infield section where you can just duck under somebody if you really need him badly. Now, it's kind of risky. You might end up exchanging a little bit of paint, but if you need to get by a guy desperately, you can. Of course, in a 6-hour race, that's not a wise strategy. It's best to be patient and follow behind. Bide your time in the long run of the day.
The leader there, Hine, in the touring class is now 18th overall. So you can see as they've spread out somewhat as the race continues into its third hour. The leader now is car number 47, John Kohler. We anticipate a pit stop very soon with perhaps some mechanical changes to that car. So we'll come back and document that from Texas World Speedway. Your leader now is making a pit stop. College Station, Texas, Texas World Speedway, the IMSA Endurance Championship. Greg Creamer is standing by to call the action.
Leader is in. That's Kohler. He's going to be getting out. Smith will be getting on board. They're going to the front tires right away as well as fuel. And we think there might be a brake change at the front end of this car. They have pulled off the front tires. And the mechanics now taking a look, going back. Yes, they have disconnected everything. Already have pulled off the calipers. You can see how quick they have this down to a science. A complete new caliper, pads and all, ready to go. Already have it bolted back on. We're watching the left side of the car, the left front of the car. Again, they are still fueling. So far, this brake change is not impinging their pit time at all because they're still looking at fuel. Now, getting ready to put the tire back on. Problem is, they had turned the wheel so far. Now he's got the tire back on. The calipers are back on. They're putting the tires on. Both sides now of the front end have the tires on and getting ready to go. We also have now number 32, another of our front runners, doing front brakes as well. So again, we're almost half distance in. This will please the teams that were thinking maybe they'd have to do 2 brake change. Might be able to get away with just 1. Of course, that depends on how hard they race in the final couple hours of this one. And again, look at this, a heck of a job here. The brakes are done. They still haven't got the car fueled, so they did the brake change quicker than topping the tanks off. And once again, Smith back on board. Smith is back on board, and that car is going to be heading out, and it's going to have a whole lot more stopping power when they hit the track, Gary.
The 32 car was third when this car comes in. Gary Smith takes the number 47 car back out of the pit area. They had been leading. They'll drop back to probably second or third position as Sean Hendricks.
Another thing to notice about the pit stop is they don't just change the brake pads, they do the whole darn caliper. Now the way they do that, some people may be wondering how can they just take the caliper off like that. There's a quick connect on the brake line, just like an air hose in the mechanic shop. And they use a similar type fitting so they can just disconnect the brake line without putting a whole lot of air or any air into the system, so that they don't have to bleed the brake. So they get a whole new brake system almost, all bled up in new pads. And here we have the 70 car back.
Yeah, the pole car, Tremblay, is back in the pit area. This is about the 4th stop for this pit crew. He's staying in though. Joe Vardy was out earlier, but Tremblay stays in. But this is the 4th pit stop for this crew.
And they're up to second now. And like you said earlier on, the fuel mileage is what really hurts that thing. So they've got to sprint like crazy.
There's
car
your news.
Back in the lead.
That's the Hendricks Boris said car. Sean Hendricks in the cockpit right now. How different though when you come in and change the brakes, and obviously a new driver comes in. There's a different race car under you.
Oh sure, it's like a brand new car as far as I'm concerned. Because the real troubling thing when you get in a car after it's been run, say 3 or 4 hours, is the brake pedal is very long. That is, it used to be real high, and now you got to push it almost to the floor. And the problem there is it takes up so much volume or so much modulation space that you don't get a whole lot of confidence in the brakes. When they change the whole caliper, you get fresh fluid. It's all, there's no air in it. Boy, it's like having a brand new car out there. And all you got to worry about is the other car's rear-ending you because you're going to have so much stopping power.
Modulation space. That's a good one, Dave.
Let me look that up in my glossary here.
Was that one your dad invented?
One of the things.
Now, will they have to change the brakes in the Mustang?
Well, they should. I was talking around the pit. You know, this is the first time I actually walked around the pit asking questions about this series.
Yeah, you racers never give straight answers anyway.
I couldn't get a straight answer out of anybody. It was, you know, you start believing the first person you say, and you start kind of talking around to other teams, and you get completely different stories. But one thing you'd be able to notice if we watch the 20 car when it gets around some faster cars, it's got a lot of power down the straightaway. We watched it pass the number 5 car and almost past the 000 car going down the straightaway. Really spectacular. And he didn't even need a draft to do it, which again just shows how much power he really has.
These Mustang Cobras were built by Ford's SVT department, or special vehicles, and they have a 351 Cobra engine that, unfortunately for the racers, is all steel or all iron. So it's a big, heavy motor, but it's big, 351. It makes some serious power. They've actually what IMSA was doing with the rules was letting the Mustangs do a little bit more in the way of modification, frankly, over the Firebirds. The Mustangs are a little bit more like a race car than are the Firebirds, and all these cars, of course, based basically on regular street cars. The Mustang's probably the furthest from it.
Ed Zabinski in car 69, another Mustang headed for pit lane. There is a speed limit along pit lane, so he had to slow down as he exited the 22-degree banking. And the second place car is headed for the pit lane. So let's see what service they may have planned for this in addition to fuel. Will they change the tires, change drivers?
That's my pit crew here. Seriously, they're handling Ed Zabinski's car as well, kind of as a favor. Looks like Joe Danaher is going to be getting back in.
You see them doing a driver change. The driver can help the other driver, but that's it. When the driver gets out of the car, he can't touch any other part of the car.
Greg?
Indeed, they're doing a driver change, so Danaher is getting back on board, Randy, also going after those tires. Otherwise, it doesn't look like they're dealing with brakes just yet. Refueling and doing just the right side tires. They're apparently pleased with the tire wear left side. Of course, it would seem on this track with the launch onto the banking all the way through the banking and down into one. A lot of strain goes on the right side tires, so they're changing those. Left sides are fine. Just getting the driver buckled in. Looks pretty much business as usual. Having a little problem with the right front tire, it appears, however. Trying to get that back on, still fueling, so it hasn't really cost them anything yet. Again, when you're running such a fuel-conservative race as this, they get those cars jacked up in the air, try and get every ounce of fuel possible in the car to give them as much time between stops as possible. And again, keep in mind, a lot of them are running these cars with the heaters on a hot day like this to keep the temperatures down. Tough on the drivers.
Now in the cockpit owns a restaurant in Albany, New York called Grandma's. Maybe he could cater something when we get up to Watkins Glen.
They specialize in pies.
Do they?
One of the great things about having Joe drive for you is he brings some great food to the local races.
That would taste pretty good this afternoon. As things heat up and the competition continues on the high banks of Texas World Speedway. Past the halfway point here at Texas World Speedway, 3 hours in and 3 hours to go. You look at the number 20 Mustang of Boris Sett and Sean Hendricks, and they have combined for a 2-lap lead. And the cars running second through sixth are then on the same lap, and there's the top 5 in the Grand Sport, your overall leaders of this event. And there's your top 5 in the sports class.
In sports class, we've got a VTEC Prelude driven by Greg Lobel and Chris Wilson leading, being chased closely by the Henderson and Van Cleef Toyota Supra. Those two have a very tight battle. They run similar lap times. The Supra actually has longer in fuel. So we'll see how they work out in the long run.
And in touring class of the 4 classes running here,
We have
top 5.
We have another Honda running up front, and they've been dicing back and forth. We've been watching the 31, the 41, really going back and forth quite a bit in position and drafting each other. It's been quite an interesting race there.
In the compact class, as we take a look at the top 5, Mitchell made the pit stop. Norris jumped out, Mitchell jumped back in, and they maintained the lead.
I'll tell you, those Nissan 240 SXs in compact are the car. And Mark Mitchell, good friend of mine, he's about 6'12" tall, and he has a vocabulary you'd never hear from anyone else. It's a combination of intelligence and surfer. And He's going really quick. They've got this 240SX going, and it's the car in compact. In fact, the Accords, you know, didn't even show up here. The Honda Accords in protest of the 240s being so quick in their class.
Well, surf's up for him because he's out there in front. They had such a big lead. They made the pit stop. They changed drivers, took on the fuel, and never relinquished the lead as they worked through that center section, the infield section here at Texas World. It's a 1.9 mile, 9-turn road course, but a good part of this racing is up on the 22-degree banking.
Another note on the touring leader. Guess who's in that car? Terry Earwood. Surprise, surprise. He won just about every race there is to win. And he's just phenomenal in the front-wheel drive car, phenomenal in these Hondas. He just takes him to the front. It may not happen right away on the first lap, but he always ends up there.
I think Terry may be the #1 all-time winner in IMSA Endurance Championship racing.
It's either he or Carl Hacker or Paul Hacker. I mean, all those guys really go.
Well, we're watching the Double Zero car. Let's go down to the pit lane and Jeff Perner.
Yes, we're down here with Paul Hacker. His car is unfortunately out, but Paul, we just saw one of your drivers get out of the Double Zero car and your brother Carl get in. What happened?
That's Mike Jacobs. He's just started with the team a few races back at Daytona. And Mike's just beginning at this sport, and he's finding out that you got to be a real athlete, like you and I know. And slowly we're going to get Mike up to speed. He turned a lot better lap times here than he did the last race. And we'll be working on him. And he's really enjoying the sport. What can I say? It's it's hot out there. These cars, I mean, I guess we've recorded up degrees of 145 degrees. A lot of people, they climb inside the sauna. Try doing push-ups while you're in there. So this is what it's like, and you're sitting there for about an hour, and your mind starts getting a little dizzy. And all of a sudden, his lap times dropped pretty badly, and he was a little dazed, but we thought better of it, got him out of the car, and we'll cool him off, and he'll be all right.
Mike Jacobs is now in the ambulance down here, and medical crew will take care of him. And yeah, you do have to be fit out here. It is getting hot, I can tell you that. Back upstairs, Gary.
Well, Hacker, of course, is a driver who has won a pro race, at least one every year for like 7 since 1977. So this guy makes his living driving race cars and does it very well. Hey, it's hot. We're staying cool in the booth. You come back and join us. From Texas World Speedway, we are now into the 4th hour of the 6-hour IMSA Endurance Championship event, and there is your lead Mustang, car number 20, Sean Hendricks, on board. His team driver, as Boris said, and right now standing by in the pit lane is Jeff Perner with the crew chief on this car, Gary Orlando.
Yes, down here with Dario Orlando. Dario, that car is doing great. The 20 car's running good. The Boris said, Sean Hendricks machine. The Mustangs have had a tough go in some of the races this year. How's the outlook today?
The outlook looks real good. You have to remember that we started with a brand new car, really not quite even a year ago, and we had to get all the bugs out and address the durability issues, but it looks like it's going to be a very good, competitive, and durable car at this time.
What's the deal with the brakes? I understand you guys aren't going to change brakes today. Everybody else seems to be, but I guess it's not going to be a problem for you guys?
Yes, we're working with Friction Products on a new pad compound, and just the procedure bedding in the brakes and the way we set the car up as far as, the brake compound has enabled us, we believe, to go the distance without a pad change.
Well, that's great. Going the distance without a pad change here in the 20 car. Back to you, Gary.
Well, so the 20 car continues to dominate with now a 1-lap margin over second place, which is the Kohler Smith entry. And so we take you back now to the leader of the touring division, that black number 31 car, and that is Gary Blackman now at the controls. And Randy Popes once again has joined us in the broadcast booth, only because of some mechanical problems very early in the race. And we want you to take us along now, if you can. Tell us about the gear shifting. Obviously, you're in high gear right now through this 22-degree banking.
Gary, I was driving that same kind of car, a Honda Prelude SI, in that class for 1 lap before we had a problem with our junkyard motor. Gary Blackman taking the low line there, that's shorter. That's down on the apron, and he's up to about 135 miles an hour now. See the Mazda catching him? The MX-6 is a little quicker on this straight, the red car behind him, the 41. 31 dives in 5th gear, hard braking down to 4th with a very fast turn 1. See the little drift? And then gently bring it in a very fast turn 2. What's interesting about this course is it starts with those very fast corners. Now you're running up near the top of 4th gear, heavy braking down to 3rd gear, decreasing radius turn. That means this turn gets tighter and tighter. Gary tucks it all the way down to 2nd, hard braking through what we call the autocross. A quick wiggling straight away, flat out in 2nd gear to the rev limiter, then back off a little, and then into a long patience maneuver. Got a shift right in the middle of that corner from 2nd to 3rd and a Prelude SI. In 3rd gear, we pull up towards the banking. In our class, that long sweeper going up towards the banking is really no problem at all. And some of the bigger cars like the Mustangs, the RX-7 Turbo, they're just barely hanging on there with the high horsepower. Now we got the leader in compact. That's Mark Mitchell or maybe John Norris in that Nissan 240SX. Now compact is a slower class, right? But look at him catch that Mazda. He's got the draft, and also those 240SXs are just a really quick car in their class. They have about the same size engine as the MX-6. The 41 cars, the top MX-6 that's been running this year with Joe Nonamaker and Bill Pate. They've got a Subway Phoenix promotion sponsored car. And right now they're just trying to work together. That 240SX is using the Mazda to go even faster on the straight than he could by himself.
All right, let's go back and update to the situation with the team car from Team 31. That would be number 38. And here's Greg Creamer in the pit lane.
Terry Irwin is with me, who just got out of the car a little bit ago. And Terry, first of all, sort of a fluke problem that made you come in a little shy of your normal fuel window.
Yeah, on our first stop, when John got out of the car, they were going to put a quart of oil in it, and the plastic oil cap shattered when they pulled it off, and we couldn't have a replacement, so they stuffed a shock absorber washer in it and a bolt. And the bolt lasted a long time, but it finally spit itself out. So I was losing oil in the corners. You could tell the oil pressure was fluctuating, so I had to come back in. We can't risk hurting the motor. So, you know, a $2 plug has put us back into 3rd place about a lap down. So it's really hard to make that cut. But it's 3 hours left.
Well, it's 3 hours left. You also have a team car, number 31, that we believe is about a lap unto itself here so far. So things looking good up front.
Yeah, we think the 31 car just went into the lead by 2 laps. He just got around the 41 car again. So our hopes are there. Matter of fact, John Green's going to get in the 31 car. He started my car. He's going to get in 31. John is the freshest driver standing out right now. So we have, you know, the 31 car won Sebring on the last lap, beat us by the last lap this year, and now it's 2 laps up. And even though there is 3 hours left, that car has been solid as a rock, you know. So with John in it, we expect a good thing. The 60 car, which is over in the sports class, set on the pole. Chris Wilson had a lap lead in that car, and we broke a hub. The first hub we've broken in 2 or 3 years, the right rear hub. The boys are replacing it right now. So, you know, normally we never have a first mechanical problem. Now we got a $2 oil plug and a $5 right rear hub. So we have a little bit of bad luck, but 31 cars still leading.
All right. Well, again, as he said, a lot of racing yet to go, though.
Well, he talks about John Green. Now, John leads the touring class as far as the point standings by only 1 over Terry Irwood, who has won 26 times in IMSA competition. So it is getting hot. It is now partly cloudy, and the competition continues here at Texas World Speedway. Competition continues here at Texas World Speedway in our 6-hour IMSA Endurance Championship. Gary Smith now has the lead, but Boris said is reeling him in at car number 20. Stu Hayner is in 3rd. Joe Vardy, after making a 6th pit stop in that car, is now up in 4th position. Incredible 6 stops for 1 car so far.
Well, we mentioned earlier that fuel was their big weakness. They had to stop just about every hour. An interesting thing here also to note is car number 20 with Boris said driving. They just turned their fastest lap of the race. They're really working hard. I said earlier, it's like a sprint race. It's only 6 hours long. That pretty much shows the point. They're just really going for it. They want to get through that.
We have enjoyed some commentary from Randy Popes, who was out early because of a mechanical problem. He watched some action, said they're having so much fun, I'm going back down to see if I can't find a ride. So he's back looking for a ride, and we're joined in the booth now by John Goddard, whose teammate John Phillips is out there in car number 75 as we're watching your leader right now, Gary Smith, as Boris said begins to close in. If you're here at the right time, we might see a pass very, very soon for the lead in the overall race.
Yeah, the Grand Sport class is very ultra competitive, and I think it'll be a good day to watch this.
As we watch Boris said there in car number 20, wheel in the 47 car who is leading. What was your problem?
Well, I ran for about 2 hours, and you know, I made the classic endurance race mistake as I went into a turn thinking the car saw me, and he came down on me and got into the back of his car a little bit. I up the entire wheel, pull up the fender.
Track conditions apparently are getting very, very slick, especially over there in the infield section.
Yeah, the infield is completely covered with rubber. It's real greasy. You got to just take as much as the car will give you out there and try to hold your line.
Now, turn 1, we've seen a bunch of cars go up between 1 and 2. How's it down there?
Well, at about the 2-hour mark, somebody laid down a little bit of antifreeze between 1 and the apex of 2, and that's probably why people are getting off.
Yeah, we saw a Pontiac Firebird that seemed to blow a motor down there, and he was smoking a lot. That might have been the cause of that. I'm not sure exactly what happened. It looks like the 47 car is slowing up a little bit, or at least these smaller touring cars and compact cars are really good on the infield.
Well, it's real tough through the infield. The cars are all classes are very close, and it's tough for anybody to let anybody by. So you're pretty much in a train from turn 3 all the way to the back straight.
You can see the gap right there, guys, between first and second. Second just off to the right of your screen. So we will take a break and then come back and then document exactly what happens if, in fact, we have a lead change here at Texas World Speedway. A challenge developing now for the lead as we continue to race here at Texas World Speedway, College Station, Texas, in the 6-hour Endurance Championship. And right now, Boris Said in the Mustang starting to close in on Gary Smith. Smith is your leader, and you can see the gap now closing down between first and second to only a couple of car lengths.
Look at the number 70 car, right behind him as well. And I don't know if Joe Barty or Tremblay's in that car, but they're running 4th right now. They're 2 laps down, and they're really trying to get their laps back.
Yeah, Barty's in the car right now, but they have made 6 pit stops in that white number 70 car, and there's the gap again between first and second on the 20-degree banking.
How many hours are we into this? We're almost 4 hours into this thing. And, geez, if I had these cars so close together, it's really amazing what IMSA is able to do to make these cars together.
Now, Barty is trying to get a lap back. Now, he's in 4th position, but he goes by 2nd place. He's actually 2 laps down. He's trying to get 1 lap back now, and it looks like he may have a shot at doing it.
Well, a bunch of traffic right there now. He's going to have a tough time. He's going to have to, like we said before, there's really not much chance to pass on the infield. He's going to have to wait for the next lap and get a draft.
This is Paul, the leader, through the infield section of this racetrack. And we were talking to John Goddard about the marble pass there, how slick it is. Look at the pass for the lead. You're right. As we're talking about the infield section where you're not supposed to pass, that's where he made the pass for the lead.
Well, it was the last chance for the infield pass. You know, going into 3 is the last place you can get a run on somebody. Otherwise, it's a freight train all the way out to the oval again.
So, what's it going to take for somebody to beat this number 20 today?
Well, I think one of these top cars, you know, the Seth Hendricks car and the Joe Aklani car with Hayner and Henrici. You know, it's just a matter of being really consistent, not making any mistakes, and having clean pit stops. I think there's several cars here that still can win this.
Yeah, you can definitely see the draft working there as the 47 car pulls up the 20 car. We mentioned earlier how much power the 20 car had. You can see it just driving around other Grand Sports cars. And right now, it's got its rear view mirror full of nice big bright purple flames on it.
Yeah, not far behind that number 70 car as well. Want to go back, if we can, and take a look at that pass for the lead and have you analyze exactly how he did it as they were going into the backstretch infield section.
But Boris said got in his blind spot a little bit, and he just plain outbraked him. A real classic pass. He got up to the door, and by this time the 47 car's got no choice but to let him through. The 20 car's got the momentum and just pulls right in front. The 47 car out.
So in a driving school, that's how they teach the pass.
Yes, I mean, it was about as clean as you can get for such a tight section. And remember, I mean, these cars are going down to 2nd gear or 3rd gear there, and our cars are going down to 2nd as well. But it's from a real high speed to a real low speed, so there's a lot of time that you can gain or lose there.
Yeah, you can see the gap now that's developed from 1st and 2nd. And you go back to the white car on the right side of your screen. That's Joe Barty, who is actually 2 laps down in 4th position, trying to get at least one of those laps back.
He's actually dropped back quite a bit. The Morissette car and Sean Hendricks car, I just get the impression they just don't like not being in the lead. And they want to get that lead and extend it. As some of my crew guys say, just get the lead and extend it.
Right now he has some traffic out in front, though.
I don't think I'll have much problem with Porsche. Porsche doesn't seem to be handling right there. It's kind of got out on the greasy stuff, but the Porsche said really seems to have the car very much under control in the real heavy rubber greasy areas.
Realistically, it's still a disciplined race because traffic is still very heavy out there.
Well, yeah, definitely. You can see that just in the way the cars closed up a couple laps ago when Joe Vardy pulled up behind the other cars, and now he's stuck back in traffic. And he's got a lot of power down the straightaway, and he can't push that off.
Look at the 84 car there. You talk about a guy who's been around for a few years. Bob Henderson has a big lead in that class, 62 years of age. He's won 6 events out of 14 starts. Anybody at any age would like to have that guy in there.
He's been around, and I'll tell you, he's got the field covered today. He's got multiple lap leads. I'm not even sure how many. It was 2 laps about half an hour ago, and now it looks like it's about 3.
He has a 3-lap lead right now in that class, the sports class, number 84. And speaking of second in the sports class, is car number 75. That's your teammate out there.
Yeah, I'm real happy to see we're up to second there. We had a bit of a rough time at Road Atlanta. Went over on the lid, and the crew had to work really hard all week to get the car ready and get a new windshield in it. And we're just we're doing the best we can here. I had a little incident early in the race, and it's still going well.
All right, so despite the fact that we're almost 4 hours into this race, we have some good competition. We'll come back and document all of it from Texas World Speedway. Back here at Texas World Speedway, David Donahue, Gary Lee here in the broadcast booth with Jeff Berner and Greg Creamer down in the pit lane as we take a look at your leader. Set took the lead a few laps back, and he continues to lead as we show you the gap back to second position. And there is second position, Gary Smith. So he's a well-turned back there in second position. Joining me in the booth once again is John Goddard, and he started the race with plate number 75. And John, car running well. Last time we really saw that car was upside down at Road Atlanta 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, that was no fun at all. The crew worked really hard all week to get the thing back together so we could run it here. Nissan and Momo and Redline Oil were really happy that we could actually make the car come back out for this race. My normal teammate is Chris Gavanis. You can see right there the little ding there. I got into somebody. Anyway, I say my normal teammate Chris Gavanis and his wife are about to have their first baby. Hopefully they've had it by now. They'll be back this race with us at Watkins Glen.
Your name right there in second place behind Bob Henderson. Top 5 in the sports standings. You were so calm and collected at Road Atlanta, hanging upside down. Oh, the 47 car, who was in second position, a problem on the racetrack back there in the infield section.
It looks like he's got a flat tire or a broken front suspension.
It's more than just
either
a flat tire.
Wheels come off. Yeah, it's definitely more than a flat tire. He's having a tough time steering it. He can go right, but he can't go left.
And he needs to get back over to the left side too, because right now he's stranded from his crew.
The damage is on the right front corner of that race car. He had been running in second position. Gary Smith was the overall second position car, and second, of course, in the Grand Sports class. And you can see the damage to the right front.
Yeah, the tire's still inflated. There's a suspension failure or something there.
Looks like the upright broke or something.
That's a real shame. Maybe he's hit the curbs a couple times. It's one thing to note here on the infield section. It's really tight, and as much as the track gets greasy, you still have to keep it on the track. And the curbing you can see right in front of the car there in that previous shot is really tall. When you bounce off it, it can really hurt the car.
Well, let's go back and see perhaps on a replay if we can determine what exactly happened. If in fact he did bounce off one of those curbs in the infield section. All right, now here is number 47, Gary Smith, behind some haulers there that are parked in the infield.
No, it just went. It was all loaded up. It was actually an outside corner. It looks like maybe some fatigue from prior laps, maybe just finally let go when the car was loaded. Yeah, it's a lot better that happened there than it happened out in turn 4 of the oval, because at almost 150 miles an hour, it could have caused some dire situation.
Well, John, David, is this a point in the race where we start to look for fatigue, mechanical stress?
Sure. Later in the race is when the cars will start to break more often. Obviously, they've been running around forever, and early on in the race, the car takes amazing abuse. As John knows, he bumped into another car. There's a lot of bumping going on. You see a lot of broken lights, headlights and tail lights for that matter.
And you have to also remember, these are production cars, and when you run this much time on a bank, that puts a lot of stress on the outside suspension parts, and this is how the manufacturers go back and learn what they need to improve on.
Well, that will give Boris Said a 2-lap lead over Joe Vardy as the race now with the 2 hours to go here in Texas. Well, as we told you, a problem with the car that had been leading earlier. Gary Smith in car 47 had been the overall leader, had some suspension damage on the right front. He was able to limp it back to the pit area. And once he got back, they went to work also with a driver change. And let's go down now to Jeff Perner with this update.
Okay, 47 car is in. They pulled the car behind the wall to make a driver change here. Serious front edge damage. I'm not quite sure to see some look like the bottom of the shock mount is broken off, and it caused the wheel to tuck under. Made it very difficult to get the car into the pits. There should be something that they can change. They're just going to have to change the whole shock tower and assembly here. See what happens. Guys are working very hard on the car. Pretty disappointing. Good lead, and I don't know what's going to happen now.
So the crew getting a good workout there with some very hot suspension equipment. There is your leader, Boris Said, and right now Boris has a 2-lap advantage. I think he has almost a 2-lap advantage, so really it's his race to lose because some other guys are having problems as well. Drivers that have been in the top 4 or 5. Car number 69 hadn't been in the top 5. That car is now parked out there in the infield section, so the race is over for that team. And also the number 70 car, Joe Vardy, had been black flagged. And Vardy, who had been up in front earlier today, they came in and topped off the fuel, but apparently they're having a fuel pickup problem. They elect to go ahead and top the fuel off, but they made a number of stops because the car is not picking up all the fuel available.
Sure, we should have picked that up right away. Early in the race, we attributed to radio problems. They pitted after 40 minutes, and we always thought they could go for an hour. And now they're coming in every 40 minutes, and it just shows exactly what's going on.
And there's Donaher out of the number 69 Mustang, and he's surveying the situation from the infield. Not exactly the vantage point he would like to have at this juncture in the race. So he, unfortunately, as a spectator, keeps the helmet on, but his race apparently is over for this afternoon. So a lot of things happening with some of the top runners. And let's go back to the pit lane with Greg Creamer.
Well, one of the few top runners left is with us, Stu Hainer, driver of the number 32 Pontiac Firebird Formula. Stu, you guys are a lap back of that very quick number 20 Mustang. First of all, what's your strategy for the end of the race? Can you run them down?
Well, we hope so. The 20 car definitely has the legs on us, but we feel that they will make a mistake, and they're driving very aggressively to go the lap times that they are, and we can't run their pace. I mean, there's just no way. We've backed off a little bit to save a little bit on the brakes and fuel to just go a little bit longer and have a little bit less fuel to put in at the end of the race.
Now, we've heard that they are not planning to change brakes. Why would they do that, and do you think they can get away with it?
Well, I'm not sure, because typically the Ford, because of the speed it carries down the straightaway, has had to use brakes, although this track really doesn't. You don't have to use the brakes. From using the brakes hard, if you had to, and not using brakes at all, you might only see a second or second and a half difference in lap times. So, maybe they've just backed off. They're fast enough the way they go that they can back off going to some of these turns to where they don't have to use the brakes very hard.
So again, it's coming down maybe less to brakes, more to fuel, and seeing if they can make it a shorter stop near the end of the race and maybe gain a lap.
We have had 10 lead changes among 6 different drivers, but this car right here has been dominant. In fact, Boris Said and Sean Hendricks have led 162 of 209 laps. And we go back to the pits again, car number 47. Now they're changing the right rear tire, and there's a driver change there. So hopefully the one-time leader can't get back, but they're like 12 laps behind in 14th position right now. So now with about an hour and 22 minutes remaining, it's still the Mustang number 20 out in front. back at Texas World Speedway with just over an hour and a half remaining. We take a look now, David Donahue, at the compact standings. Jason Engel now once again with the lead. He is in the car he shares with Peter Tonelli, and those teammates have won the last two outings, and they are tied for the lead in the compact drivers' points.
Yeah, we were commenting earlier how the 65 car seemed to have such a great advantage when it came in for a relatively long stop to do a driver change in fuel and maintain the lead. But the 78 car seems to really have caught up. It's passed him, and in the last series of about 5 or 6 laps has pulled out about 2 seconds overall lead on him.
Yeah, one time about a 22-second advantage over the Norris Mitchell, number 65. So the pass of the lead occurred in the last hour of the competition here.
Sure, now they've got a 25-second lead, so they're definitely pulling it out. It seems like now about a second a lap.
A 25-second lead is a very, very big lead.
Well, yeah, I mean, even the slower cars here, I don't mean to say slow because they're definitely not. They're only going about 130 on the front straight here. The Grand Sports cars are reaching just over 140. So they're definitely not slow. These guys, it may look like they're out for somebody to drive sometimes, but they're really trying and working hard. You can see how they're kind of falling out when they get out. We've had emergency crews called to pits before the car even comes in, just because the heat is out here. It's just off on the aggregate.
Well, you can see the difference in the classes right there.
Oh, sure.
This compact being passed on the high end of the area.
Here you see the 71 car that had electrical problems earlier on. He's back out there.
And there's a lower groove, too, that these compact cars are taking. They're down actually almost on the apron.
Yeah, they use the apron with a couple of distance, as Randy said earlier and I said earlier. And then they have to get up high just so they can get an angle down into turn 1. Because turn 1 is now, as we're hearing from the comments of the driver coming up to the booth here, it's getting really slippery. Cars just get loose.
And a look there at the Miata that runs in 3rd place in the compact class. So we actually have, once again, if you've just joined us, 4 classes racing for 6 hours here on the 1.9-mile road course in College Station, Texas at Texas World Speedway. And we still have just about an hour and a half of competition to go. Now with just under an hour and 20 minutes to go, there is a look at your lead car, the number 20 Mustang of Boris Said and Sean Hendricks. And they have a comfortable 2-lap lead right now. John Heinrichsey rides in 2nd position, car 32. Then Joe Varney stays behind the wheel of car number 70. Cat Teasdale in 4th. And Craig Conway now in the 5th position. The top 5 overall, the top 5 in the Grand Sport. And there is a 2nd place, car number 32, John Heinrichsey, who just a little earlier had a problem that we'll talk about. But right now in the broadcast booth with us is one of his team drivers, Terry McDonald-Cantu. And earlier, you had an early out. You parked your car about 3 hours in. But what is your teammate doing down there?
Well, the track's probably starting to get a little greasy, and he probably just went in a little too hot and got the rear end a little out. But he's a good driver. He's back on, and I'm sure he's full charge now.
Your car actually started at 4th on the grid, but you were out after about 3 hours. What happened?
We started 4th. We were doing really good, and then all of a sudden the Good Wrench PPG Firebird just overheated, and it got so hot that we had to pull it off, and we think we might have hurt the engine a bit.
Only 2 young ladies in competition today, and Cat Teasdale, the other one now in the 4th position. And obviously it's frustrating as a driver to have a mechanical problem, have to sit and watch the rest of the team out there enjoying a hot afternoon.
It's really hot. It's really, really hard. And the hardest part is last week, John Heinrichsey and I came off a 2nd place finish at Atlanta. And so we were really hoping to do the same thing again this weekend. But, oh well, that's racing there, so they say, you know.
And we're seeing again how slick it's actually getting through that infield section. We had a build-up of rubber, the marbles out there, and the groove is very, very narrow.
Also got to remember that, Greg, it's probably 90 degrees outside, regular temperature. So when you add the car and the tires, it gets really, really hot, and so the track gets slippery.
Well, there's the other young lady who's out there. That's Cat Teasdale, who has dual citizenship with Canada and the US of A. and has several different homes that he passes around. And I think that we can check in with Greg in the pit lane.
Well, actually, teammate to Cat Teasdale is with me, our last year's Grand Sports champion. And, you know, we hear a lot about that cliche, but it's very true. To finish first you must finish. And Andy, you've amassed quite a record in doing just that. I think since June of '92, you've had 35 consecutive finishes in some 164 hours of racing. That's maybe why you were champion last year.
Well, yeah, exactly. Yeah, definitely. Finishing last year, all the races meant that we were the championship team, and I won the championship. It's hard to say. You align yourself with a team like this, it makes the finishing really easy. I just do my job and bring the car home, but they give me a car that I can bring home.
Right now, you're bringing it home, but you're a few laps down to the leading Mustang. Anything you can do about them today, you think?
No, we really had to run our pace today. It's a 6-hour race. There's probably 3 or 4 cars that were running a pace that was a second or 2 quicker than us. Well, we can't do much about it. We just have to run our race and see what happens.
Why is that? Why can't you run that pace for the 6 hours? What's the problem?
The car just won't go that fast.
Well, that's about as honest as it gets, We'll get back up to the booth, Gary.
Well, we continue to watch Cat, the 5th place car number 2, making a pit stop. This is the Conway Goad Pilgrim, and Teasdale is also listed as a driver on that car. So many of these cars have 4 drivers listed, but they also interact between the two. Goad is actually going in the car, as we'll do a tire change. It should be David Donahue, the last stop for this team.
Hopefully it is, yeah. Unless they have another problem, they'll be able to run to the finish. Like we said earlier, the Pontiac can probably run about an hour and a half. Would that be about accurate, Terry?
Just under an hour and a half, more like an hour and 20.
Yeah, see, we'll go through the paddock and you get different stories from everybody. So the 4 guys are saying the Pontiac's can go for about an hour 30, hour 40 minutes, and it goes the other way around. And the only thing that's really conclusive is that Mazda's can only go about an hour. That's if they're getting all the fuel, which obviously the Sunday car is not.
The owners of this team actually are involved with the building of the pace cars for NASCAR. So they're involved with building all the Pontiac pace cars, so they know their way around these type of cars. Now, you're talking about the runaround that you're getting from all the drivers you were talking to. Just remember, when those of us in the media come to you, David, we want a straight answer, all right?
I always do a straight answer.
We have completed 234 laps, and so far we have gone flag to flag yellow. This race last year went without a yellow, and it looks like we could, let's not jinx it, looks like we could go the distance today.
There's a lot of space to run around here, and cars can go off without hitting anything, and if they do hit something, they're usually ended up going so slow by the time they hit something that no damage happens to the car. We saw that earlier coming out of the infield carousel. Mustang appeared to us pretty deep into the tire wall, and he just backed it out and drove it back to the pits and checked it out, put some more fuel in, and anyway, just back out there.
Of course, we talked earlier about our Speedway coverage at Le Mans coming up in June, and you take a look at some of the top qualifiers. They had really the qualifying, if you will, because they narrowed the field from 100 and some entries down to about 78. And you can see the Taylor Pace Sharp car that won Daytona and Sebring 3rd so far, and Mario Andretti is in 4th. And look at this, car 32, your 2nd place car now, is once again spinning down there. So could the tires be going away?
Last time John came in, or Stu came in, the tires were all blistered when they changed them. So I would say that the tires are starting to go away.
Very often what happens is when the track gets greasy like this, they do a lot of sliding around.
You can see the leader was chasing down 2nd place to put him another lap down. He was 2 laps down already, and he just drives it hard in the corner and slides run around.
That's about as sprint car as you can get, I think.
John definitely.
He's been watching a lot of Saturday Night Thunder, I think. never ever lifted through that whole thing. See what kind of rooster tail he can get.
Yeah, he has excellent car control. These old-time racers, they just know how to handle a car.
If it's half on pavement, whatever.
It's late in the race. The tires are going away. The drivers are getting tired, but we're coming back to give you some more action. As we come back to Texas World Speedway, we show you the pit action as your leader makes what could be and should be the last pit stop for the number 20 Mustang. As apparently no driver change. Yes, they are. They did make a driver change in that thing, and they're changing the tires. So David Donahue, this should do it for the team that now has a 2-lap margin.
Sure. Look at Boris in there. Just looking at it, they're all pretty happy with how they're doing right now. The team's taking their time, being very careful. Looks like they're just finishing up on the right rear there, and now all they're waiting for is fuel. The team's really got it together.
Boris said there took a brief respite on the pit wall as he climbs out. Let's go down pit side, Jeff.
Okay, the 20 car has just come in for their final stop, or what should be anyways. Boris said get out of the car. Looking pretty good, pretty refreshed there for a nice drive. And Sean Hendricks is now in. No tire change, just fuel going in. And as we know, it takes a while to put that Exxon gasoline in these cars with the stock refueling systems. I'm going to try to get a word with Boris. Get a little water there. He is a little bit hotter than Okay, here we go, Boris. Great run out there.
Yeah, I mean, the car's working perfect. All the Steeda guys are doing a great job. You know, hopefully now we can just bring it home and keep our fingers crossed the Ford Mustang will go one more hour and be the first Mustang to ever win an endurance race.
Let's hope so. I mean, you guys had a great run today. How are the brakes holding up? They still sounding good?
Yeah, right now, I mean, we still have half the pads left, so that's not a worry for us at all.
That's great. It sounds like the Mustangs have finally gotten their brake woes taken care of and perhaps go on to win today.
Well, they will come out of the pits with a lap advantage. And when we talked about the brakes, David, you had a big smile on your face. What was that about?
I just remember talking to my friend Paul Hacker, and he had trouble with the brakes. It looks like the number one car's in the pits.
Fourth place overall is in the pits. The hood is up.
Jack stand underneath. The kids are doing real work to it. And let's see what they're trying to do here. They got to lift the car up just to get off the jack stand because they already pulled away the jack.
So that is Kat Teasdale, who had been in fourth position when she brought the Pontiac Firebird Formula into the pit.
There they go. They got it down.
Slam the hood, and the young lady is away, and
just a little mistiming, I guess, with the jack band. It very often happens with the guys when they're in a real rush in the pits. You shove the jack stand under there for safety, and you can't really see it as you're standing right next to the car. You put the car down, and you're not really looking to see if it's all the way down. You run over to the other side, and of course both wheels are down on the other side. So you start jacking it up again, and of course, you know, when you put the car back down, it's not all the way down, and everyone's got to wait. You see how together the guys were there trying to get the car up, trying to lift it from themselves if they could.
That has to be the most anxious time for a driver. You're doing your part on the racetrack. They're in the pits. You're strapped in the cockpit. You can't do a thing until they finish up. Let's go back trackside, Greg.
Well, we're with the driver who just got out of the number one entry, Kat Teasdale, obviously running up in the top 5, fourth right now. Not quite the pace maybe for that lead Mustang, but you're doing well otherwise.
Well, you know, the Midland Wallwind Pontiac Racing car number one is running strong. It's not running as strong as what the Mustang is. We just can't keep that pace up. So we're running the pace that we had set. We had talked about it in our meeting together, and we're doing the best we can with the car. The car's hurting a little bit. It's not quite as happy as it was when it first started, but not much. I mean, last year when we were here, the cars were running a little bit harder than even what we are now. So we're hopeful to be able to be on the podium when it all is said and done. The number 2 car is running really strong as well.
Hood was up. Any problem seriously?
Not really seriously. It's just hot. You know, we're standing in Texas in May, and it's pretty warm here. The cars are running a little bit warmer. The turbo cars are running awesome out there as well. The Maz is running really strong, but you know, we've been able to keep our car out there. The 32 Pontiac's been running really strong as well. So we're hopeful that a Pontiac will be on the podium, if not 1, maybe 2.
And again, they're just trying to get it to the finish.
Well, David Donahue here in the broadcast booth. It's nice and cool, but we're watching the action that continues to run hot. And I want to talk a little bit about what happens in the last hour of a competition like this. And we'll do this when we take this break and come back to Texas World Speedway. Now into our final hour of the 6-hour endurance here at Texas World Speedway, and you're looking at the car in second place overall. That is John Heinrichs in car 32, and we're anticipating a pit stop. Here he comes right now. This will be a timed fuel stop, so apparently no driver change. And Greg, this should be the last stop for this team. They come in about 25 seconds back in second place.
Well, that's why they're doing the time stop. They want to try and stay on the same lap. He is now down in pit lane. In fact, they are going to go for a driver change. They want an absolutely fresh driver on board, so Hayner is ready to go. These two have done this driver change many, many times, so it should hopefully go off without a hitch. and they are going after it again. They're going to put new tires on, so that they've got fresh rubber on the car, but instead of taking the fuel to the very top of the tank, they're going to put in just enough to guarantee that they can make it to the finish. That's what they're in the process of right now. Working on the tire. A problem, one of the tires got away. That's going to cost time on that right side. One of the tires got away. Fortunately, it was one of the tires that had already come off the car, so no problem there. The hood's going up. They're going to, I think, top off a little bit of oil. Exactly, that's what they're going to do, and they're going to get a penalty, apparently. One of the IMSA officials has come up. You know, this is ironic. Right before he came in, team owner Joe Aquilani said, boy, this is when your heart goes into your throat, because you got to have this go without any problems. And they've had one. It's going to get compounded by the penalty. So things not going quite the way they want right now, Gary.
So that penalty will be what, a stop and go? No, a 10-second penalty for that tire rolling away. So that will be very costly. Now they had yet to make their final pit stop, and there you see the tire rolling away. The air and tire cost them 10 additional seconds in that pit lane. They came in some 25 seconds behind the leader, but the leader has made apparently the last pit stop. And there is the penalty right there. The IMSA official holding the car an additional 10 seconds, steps away, and Stu Hainer is back in competition. But what a costly, a minute and 23 seconds on that stop.
Now you asked me before what it's like out in on the track at the end, and what's frustrating and what's not frustrating. And there isn't anything more frustrating than just sitting there in the pits with a darn IMSA official with one hand out, making you stop and sit there.
Well, before they made the stop, if we take a look at your leader, that is Sean Hendrick now in the car for the final driving leg. Morris said had been in it for a while. Now Morris is having a rest, and Sean Hendrick will take it to the checkered flag with the last 55 minutes or so.
They now have about a 1-lap lead, a little bit more than 1 lap lead, so they really have to take it easy, make sure that they don't hit anyone or no one hits them. So they got the brakes apparently figured out so they can run the distance on that. And from what it looks like going into turn 1, that they've done a real good job conserving their brakes and really able to kind of slide the car in there.
Is it not a concern, David, at this time of the race to become almost too conservative and get out of a certain rhythm?
Well, sitting here talking to Terry, that's one thing I never consciously realized. The hard thing about this track, and it's really the only thing that's hard about this track, is creating a rhythm. You're out on this real wide open expanse of an oval, and you kind of get out of a rhythm, and then you go flying into turn 1, which is actually a pretty high technique kind of a turn, and now it's getting very slippery. You see the cars, you see the rear end really kind of tracking wider than the front end of the cars. Just watch it right there. See how it gets a little bit loose there, the rear end coming around. And then you get to the infield section, which is you're just throwing it back and forth, back and forth. And then you get back out on the oval again. It's really hard to get a rhythm.
There's the sports leader, 62-year-old Henderson in car 84, your top 5 in the sports. And when you talk about Terry, of course, you're referring to Terry McDonald Caju, who has joined us here in the broadcast booth. And realistically, this is really 2 distinctly different racetracks. You have a lot of time around turn what would be 3 and 4 in the oval down the front stretch to really rest and flex your fingers and take a deep breath. And in the infield, it's very difficult.
Exactly. Out on the oval, you have time to tighten your belts and grab a drink of water, and then through the infield, it's like total panic. Just turn, and get on it, and away you go. So it's like total boredom and then total busyness.
And it's funny when you describe it to people who don't really understand racing, because I feel the same way Terry does. That's the fastest part of the track. It's like 130, 140 miles an hour, and it feels kind of funny when you tell someone that's the time you get to relax, but in reality it is.
Touring top 5 coming up, car number 31, now running 13th overall, but first in the touring class. So once again, if you just joined us here at Texas World Speedway, we do have 4 different classes running. Green is out in front. In fact, John Green leads by 1 point in the driver's standings over teammate Terry Irwood. Once again, around the front, and there is your compact leader, car number 65. The compact car is 16th overall, but that's the Norris Mitchell entry, and they are leading. So they led early, then they dropped back to second position. They have now reassumed the top spot. And let's look at the top 5 in the compact division. At this point in the race, David, and Terry, if you'd like to jump in, Is the car starting to talk to you? Are you trying to talk to the car just to get into the last 45 or 50 minutes?
The car is usually crying to you at this point in the game. You know, we mentioned before the track's getting slick, and it's really an exponential problem because as more rubber gets laid down, it gets a little more slippery in some cases because of the heat. And what that causes is for you to actually slide the car more, which generates more heat in the tire, which rubs off more rubber. So these guys are really trying hard to get the same lap time as they did. That's why I see so many
We have gone now from the entire race so far without yellow. This is not something new to this last year. They moved by with flag green. The question is, can this car number 20 go out with the real probably answer my own question? It can't because this got the brake change now because we do have what, a two-lap advantage. But someone is surprised that this Mustang has gone the distance without a brake light.
Yeah, it's very impressive that they've gotten the race figured out. As I think we mentioned before, Paul Hacker's a friend of mine, and that's one of the areas that he's really trying to improve his Mustangs. He's doing all kinds of freezing brake rotors, heat treating brake, and doing anything he can to figure out how to get the brake discs to last and get the pad to last.
But this track is, it's not a real hard braking track. You've got so much open space that the brakes are able to cool down. And you can use turn one and you use the brake 2 or 3 times, and then you have a whole lot of time to cool them down.
All right, well, there is a look at your leader, and in the cockpit is Sean Hendricks, and he's been teaming with Forrest Seth. That number 20 Mustang continues to set the pace here in Texas. What do they say in the racing? It's not over till the fat lady sings. We have about 40-some minutes to go, and we're watching car number 65. That is your leader in the compact class, but look at the rear of that car, David. Does not look good.
No, there's some smoke coming out there. They had some engine problems. I saw that earlier, and I just attributed it to braking smoke. You notice a lot of times, well, it's definitely not. Obviously, it's on the wrong side of the car. But you notice a lot of front-wheel drive cars will lift a rear tire, and when we're on the brakes, and the rear tires lifted, sometimes they'll skip across the ground and get some speed.
Yeah, they had been leading, and because of this engine problem, smoking, they made a pit stop, took on some fuel. They lost the lead to the Tonelli-Engel car, and there is your new leader. David Doherty is in the cockpit right now. Car number 78 is the leader. The team drivers in this car, Jason Engel and Peter Tonelli, have won twice already this season, and they lead their time in the Drivers' Championship in the compact class. So as we get late in the going, machinery gets tired.
That's right. We'll see a lot more attrition at this point in the race than we had throughout the early parts of the race. The battle we had going here in compact was actually very tight. I mean, we were watching this back and forth. As we commented earlier, there was only a 22-second lead or 24-second lead, and the 78 car had that over the 65 car. And when the 65 car came in for the engine problem, it was leading by a couple seconds as well.
You can see the compact class car right tucked up behind the ground sport car, and they're running right together through that infield section. So right now we'll see how fast that compact car really is when it starts to leg it out on the high banks.
Yeah, you'll see the Mustang go high and the compact go low, try to cut the distance.
Now there is a familiar race car for you, is it not?
Yes, it is. It's a little bit less modified than the original, right? But the M3's had a real tough time here.
His first endurance appearance. That has to be a thrill to drive over 6 hours. One thing about this series, you get plenty of laps in the race car.
Russ Wiles is a BMW veteran, big BMW CCA member. He won the One Lap of America 2 years ago. He surprised everybody. Finished second to Porsche Turbo. The M3 was first introduced. Not doing the One Lap this year, but he's trying to make a go at racing. He's still having such a great time there.
Have you ever had time to drive that thing?
I've been asked to do it this year. I've been avoiding it for just a week of no sleep.
I drove the very first one, 1984. I tell you, it is taxing. We only had 2 drivers with 8,700 miles in 7 days, night and day. Right now, they're only racing 6 hours. By comparison to One Lap America, 6 hours in a sprint race.
You hear so many stories from you guys. It's impressive. That's why I'm actually kind of interested.
A lot of that about that because that was like 16 years ago or 12 years ago when I did it in 1984. So let's watch your leader. That is the team of Boris and Sean Hendricks. They have led from early on, really dominated the total laps led. The IMSA officials are now looking at the smoke from number 65. The smoke is coming from the tailpipe, so the IMSA officials are checking that over, and we could yet see a black flag.
Yeah, you can kind of see when he gets on and off the throttle. Whenever you see a puff of smoke, it's usually when he's getting off the throttle. At least it's not happening when he's going full throttle as dramatically. There you see the 20 car getting a good draft off the other four. He's just pacing himself now, just he ought to be.
You think someone from the pit lane was on the radio saying, just take it easy?
Sure, they ought to be, because all he knows is go. they got to reel him in. He's a real fast driver. He won the Bridgestone Championship last year in a BMW M5. The car that I won the championship before.
Well, we have now about 35, 36 minutes to go, and there is your lead car. A quick glance as we're going to take this break and come back to Texas World Speedway. And now you can see by the running clock, 7.5 minutes remaining, and Sean Hendricks has that Mustang out in front. In fact, they are going for the first win for a Mustang, and Stu Hayner over 2 laps behind in second place. Then Doug Goad is third. Tremblay, your fast qualifier, they have made numerous pit stops in car number 70. They're back there in 4th position. Once again, their leader out in front, and they have totally dominated this race.
They really have. They have a big lead right now, 2.5 laps, excuse me. And they've basically done what my crew members keep saying to me, just get an early lead and extend it.
And keep it.
Like I said earlier as well, it's really a sprint race. And you see now, since they have 2.5 lap lead, they've been dicing it in various parts of during the course of this race as well with other cars. And other cars have broken. They've not broken. They've really got rid of it right now.
As we're watching the leader in the sports class there, Henderson at 84. With all the rubber being laid down today, you guys have the big race tomorrow, 500 miler. How soon is this race going to be?
Well, that's a good question. I have no idea. The track really usually does change over the course of a race, let alone between races. So tomorrow morning, hopefully the track will be be able to feel that out. But even during our race, it'll change.
288 laps now complete for your overall leader. That is the Boris and Sean Hendrick car, and they have led now 251 of those laps. You talk about total domination on this racetrack here this afternoon.
And a real interesting part of that is their fastest lap of the race was on lap 182, and that was when they were trying to get back in the lead. They don't particularly like being in second place, that's for sure.
4 classes racing in competition this afternoon, and there is your class leader in the touring class. Car number 31, Gary Blackman. Blackman was also the fast qualifier yesterday in that qualifying session, so he has had the lead for much of the day.
The other enjoying a 2-lap lead right now, so he also is really trying to pace himself.
Compact class is being led by car number 78. We talk about Ford winning for the day. Well, of course, we have Jeff Turner covering the pit area from our pit announcers. He won in a Ford Taurus back, I think it was 1980, so it's been a while since we've had a victory, and this will be the first for a Mustang. Minutes away from Boris ending his 9th win overall, and for Sean Hendricks, his 4th win, and again, the first Mustang. Now, we don't want to split them, though, because we still have about 5 minutes to go.
Yeah, we're putting the chicken in front of the egg here, or the cart in front of the horse, or whatever the saying is.
Of course, when you take a look at the points, we have Car of the Year honor. Each car, as they win in their class, gets points. And the car with the most points at the end of the year then will receive the Car of the Year award. Right now, the Nissan has 75 points, all accumulated with the compact manufacturing division. There's the Firebird Formula, along with the Supra and the Prelude are tied for second. And the Mazda is back there in 5th position. So we'll have, in addition to a points championship with driver, we'll also have Car of the Year right now being led by Nissan. Speaking of leading, there's your lead driver after Sean is out in front. Sean Hendricks. Pits. It doesn't really take that car over the last
So a bunch of cars crossing the start finish line.
Comes out right in front of your leader, but that was just really to top off the field, make sure he didn't feel a good distance. So I don't think he's going to lose his position there from third. Doug Goad made that quick stop. But again, we watched the leader who has been totally dominant here this afternoon.
It's surprising that they did pit that late because usually teams really try to pit early if they realize that they have a fuel problem an hour ahead of time. It's much more to their advantage to pit at that time. Whenever they lose the ground, they can race for it later on. When you pit late in the race, you really don't have much of a chance to It's also interesting to note when you look at the number 20 car, Boris said, Sean Hendricks, there's no body damage on that. They run a real clean race. There's just a bunch of dirt and a little bit of spilled fuel on it. These cars have got a lot of rubber for the tires that are coming off the floor. Other than that, there's no dents or dings in it.
Now about 2.5 minutes away from going flag to flag green. We had a couple of applications down the road section, but we've had green throughout. And this will be the second straight year that they've gone flag to flag green. That's been an accomplishment and a tribute to these drivers.
Look at this, too wide. Hey, remember what I said before? Sean Hendricks never gives up. He's run too wide now, all through 1, all through 2, all the way through 3.
Jeff Berger, as we talked about having a victory for a Ford so many years ago, is standing by with a guy that should be a very happy individual in about 2 minutes. Jeff?
Yes, down here with Dan Perkins, owner of the 20 car, Boris said, and Sean Hendricks. Great day, Dan. You guys have just really worked hard in the past year and a half, and it's finally come together for you, hasn't it?
Oh, it's a fantastic feeling. I'm just numb. Fantastic car. Boris and Sean, excellent race. It just, words don't describe it at this point.
Yeah, it's really, I tell you, the tensions are pretty high right now. Everybody's just waiting for that checkered flag to come out. And, you know, I think when it falls, there's going to be a lot of partying tonight down there in the Ford camp.
Oh, absolutely. We've had a year and a half to plan this moment, so we're ready.
They certainly are.
12th season for the IMSA Endurance Championship, and as we have documented, this will be the first time in the ground sport division for a Ford Mustang to take a victory, and we may anticipate the white flag the next time by. So we'll have just over a lap to go as your leader negotiates that infield section, come through turn 7 and turn 8, and then come back up onto this 22-degree banking.
I don't believe what I just saw, too. Sean Hendricks actually let the Pontiac by. That's a very for Sean. He must be feeling a little nervous. He really wants to finish this race, really wants to.
They're screaming on the radio, be careful, take it easy, let anybody run by you who wants to go by.
Don't mess with this guy. Because the lap before, he was too wide in the first 3 turns of the track. To do that this late in the race, first of all, the 2 drivers have to be real confident with each other, but the cars have to be working pretty well, too.
We are headed for almost a 3-lap victory for the Mustang, and the white flag is out. Jim Sidley has the white flag out. 1 more lap to go as we follow Sean Hendricks around. He'll follow the Pontiac.
Now, if the Pontiac was smart, the Pilgrim Teasdale Pontiac, they actually lift a little bit, let Sean by, because if they end up finishing in front of Sean or going across in front of Sean, they have to go most of the lap. You know, at this point in the race, as much as you want to race and you want to win and all this stuff, but you don't want to just keep driving around and around and around. But, you know, if they cross the start-finish line ahead of the 20 car, then technically the 20 cars finished the race, but they haven't, even though they're only 6 feet apart. So the 20 car will have to race for a whole other lap.
All right, final lap here at Texas World Speedway. Negotiates the infield section, comes up on the 22-degree banking, and he's headed through the final corner. Jim Sidley will have the checkered flag out as Sean Hendricks will bring home the white Mustang number 20.
Yeah, you see they're pretty smart there. Number 2 car just let him go by.
Watching for the checkered flag. There it is. 6 hours and the victory as the crew looks on in jubilation. Boris said there with the baseball cap on, a congratulatory handshake all the way around.
A victory for Ford. That's great. It's our first victory here in Grand Sports. And the 32 car hangs on for second. And the 70 car, believe it or not, the car that pitted out must have been almost a dozen times. It seemed like every half hour he was coming in for a pit stop. And he still ends up 4th place.
Yeah, Vardy and Tremblay made about 9 or 10 pit stops as your victor being saluted by the turn marshals around the track. And for Sean, that was his 4th win overall.
Here comes the
touring leader. The touring victory goes to Gary Blackman, who started from what would be his pole position. He was the fast qualifier for that event, for that class. And Sean Hendricks picks up his 4th win. As we said, Boris said, his 9th win overall. That was the 4th win for Blackman. His teammate Green, his 23rd winner. 62-year-old Tom Henderson takes the victory in his class. Who says you have to be a young man to go racing?
Certainly not me.
62 years of age, and he keeps on winning. And he has a fantastic winning average so far over the past few years in IMSA competition. And there's your compact class as David Doherty takes the compact class championship here at Texas World Speedway.
This win for Nissan in the compact division should really help them in the Car of the Year awards.
So we'll take a break, come back, and visit with the victor. Stay with us. After 6 hours of endurance championship racing, we are ready to take you to Victory Lane to visit with Boris and Sean. Here once again is Greg Creamer.
Gary, a very happy group of people down here in Victory Circle. An absolutely dominating performance for the Mustangs' first win in this type of racing. Just a great performance. Sean Hendricks, one of the 2 drivers on board. And Sean, first of all, this must be very special for you for a couple reasons. One, you had that tough wreck at Sebring. You had to come back from some broken ribs. It didn't seem to bother you at all today. Of course, I'm sure winning makes that pretty pleasant. How rare is it to have a car that is just this phenomenal?
You hardly ever get one like this. It's been a long time since I've had one. The whole Steeda team worked very hard on this car. This win's been a long time coming for this team. We had a race down at Daytona that we should have won if I wouldn't have made a mistake down there. But sure, I'm glad for Ford and the whole Steeda team to win this race.
Absolutely, and Boris, of course, a great effort as well. And, you know, we talk about the car that didn't have to do brakes, it just ran like a clock. But let's take a look at this car. There's not a scratch on it. The drivers did a superb job as well, staying out of trouble. That's tough to do for 6 hours.
Yeah, I mean, Steeda prepared a really good car, and I mean, it's a whole team effort. You know, these guys have been working really hard. They're a good bunch of guys. Daryl from Roush helped out, Steeda, all the rehab pathway people, and you know, me and Sean just drove the car around and had a good time and didn't hit anybody, and we won. So that's a pretty good day.
Very happy indeed. Again, the crew pumping some fists down here. They are happy. Gary?
First win for a dominant Mustang. In fact, unofficially, they led 258 of 294 laps. And Grand Sport's unofficial results, of course, Sayden Hendricks the victor over Hainer and Heinrichs. There was the Conway Goad car in 3rd position. Then Tremblay and Vardy from the pole finally finished 4th after making about 10 or 12 pit stops. And there is the 5th position. Now we take a look at the unofficial sports results. And once again, for the 3rd time this season, the Van Cleve and Johnson team took the victory. There is the touring unofficial results. And then quickly we'll wrap up with the compact cars. And there once again, the top 5, Tonelli and Engel winning for the 3rd time this season. So that will wrap it up from Texas World Speedway. As we tell you, coming up a bit later in June, we ask you to join us on the 19th from Watkins Glen, 8 p.m. Eastern Time for the IMSA Endurance Championship. And so our congratulations to Boris Said and Sean Hendricks. For David Donahue, Jeff Perner, and Greg Creamer, I'm Gary Lee. Thanks for joining us. So long from Texas World Speedway.